Chapter 1472. The conflict between the three women was like dry wood meeting a raging fire. There was no need for anyone to ignite the fire. It would burn anyone who meddled. I think it's best for me to remain silent. After pondering for a while, Dustless chose not to help either side. In this kind of situation, the one who would be taken advantage of in the end would be the man. He would only intervene when the situation was out of control. Where did this wild girl come from? Liliana's tone was also unfriendly. Of course, this was secondary. She also caught a strong hint of something else from Grace Courtyard's words. This *** shook her head. She wanted to monopolize Dustless. How preposterous. Liliana bared her teeth and cursed Grace Courtyard in her heart. This ** was too shameless. In the end, she just wanted to monopolize the power and kick them away. She was even more despicable than Erica. Clang clang clang. Erica, who knew that there was no way to resolve the grudge between them, also drew her sword and smiled. In that case, it seems that there is nothing to negotiate. Why don't the loser leave? That's what I want. That's what I want. Liliana and Grace Courtyard agreed. The three women's fighting spirit surged and they released a powerful aura, causing their hair to dance in the wind. You still have time to watch the show? They're going to fight because of you. A slightly suspicious voice came from behind. It was quite pleasant to the ear. However, Dustless's expression remained the same. There was no change in his emotions. Without turning his head, Dustless knew who it was. Athena, this doesn't seem to have anything to do with you. Or, suddenly turning his head, Dustless stroked his chin and asked teasingly, "Don't tell me that you're also here for me like them." Of course. Athena's face was bright red. She then approached Dustless rather shyly. Something's not right. Seeing this, Dustless was dumbfounded. He stared blankly at Athena, who was gradually approaching him. According to his thoughts, after hearing what he said just now, Athena would definitely ridicule him ruthlessly and kick him if she could. Aren't you? Woo-woo. Before he could finish his sentence, Dustless was shocked to find that his lips were blocked. The touch was soft and comfortable, but Dustless couldn't feel happy. He felt like he was being targeted by a demon. His eyes widened as he looked at Athena. She was still holding onto Dustless's mouth, and there was a strange smile on her face. She looked like a venomous snake. Swish! Swish! Taking advantage of Dustless's paralysis, a sharp cold light came straight at him. Poochie! Dustless, who was caught off guard, did not have time to dodge. The cold light slashed at his throat, killing Dustless in an instant. Who are you? Dustless asked with a frown. He had just realized that something was wrong and was about to push Athena away, but it was already too late. He was instantly killed by the Grim Reaper's scythe. Me? I am your Athena. The Athena smiled mysteriously. You are. I know, so it's you. Dustless stared at the girl for a while before he replied. You should be Athena's mother, Métis. In order to get close to me, you actually dressed exactly like Athena. You really put in a lot of effort. You can't go wrong with being careful, Métis replied calmly. Her voice was cold and dark. Then she stared at Dustless, who was still calm despite being cut in half. But your life force is really strong. If you weren't a god slayer, I would have taken you as my own. Shouldn't he die on the spot after being cut in half? Why is this guy completely fine? My life force is not just strong. As the 10-tailed beast, I am immortal. Dustless smiled proudly, not at all worried that his body would be cut in half. Immortal? What a bunch of lies. Métis curled her lips, her face full of disdain. Then, she was too lazy to talk nonsense. Where did you hide Athena? That guy actually gave up the dignity of a god and worked with a god slayer like you. She has fallen. Fallen? I feel that Athena has evolved. Dustless smiled and quibbled. Can this damn guy die or not? Seeing that Wu Chen's head was separated from his body, but he was talking cheerfully and wittily as if nothing had happened, Mortis couldn't help but twitch. This annoying fly still chose to say things that she didn't like. Sorry, you didn't hit the real me. How could you die? There was a ripple in the void, and the cold voice was filled with pure sympathy and pity. Métis was indeed quite tragic. She had always been considerate of Zeus, but in the end, her ending was extremely tragic. Zeus was afraid that the child in Métis' belly would surpass him, so he took advantage of Métis' carelessness to devour her. "You are no match for me. If you leave now, I can let you go," Dustless, who was cut in half at the waist, said softly. "You are already cut in half, and you are still talking nonsense?" Métis asked angrily. Métis licked his dry cherry lips and was just about to ridicule Dustless when he suddenly noticed that the world in his eyes had inexplicably undergone a change. And Dustless' corpse no longer existed. What was extremely comical was that it had turned into two pieces of wood. "What's going on?" Métis, whose mouth was twitching, asked with a dark expression. "You were just hit by my illusion. The scene of me being killed just now was just an illusion." Light flickered and Dustless revived perfectly. He was clean and there was nothing wrong with him. The surroundings were the same as before and there were no changes. Chapter 1473. Métis' eyes widened as she stared at Dustless. After a while, she snapped out of her daze and clenched her fists tightly. She was especially annoyed by the way Dustless looked at her with pity. It was as if she had swallowed a fly. "I'm not a beggar, I'm a god. Who needs your pity, you stinky man?" "You're not convinced." Looking at the angry Métis, Dustless said, "Your acting is very good. I almost thought you were Athena." "No. Maybe if you didn't act rashly just now, I would have really thought you were Athena." Dustless looked at Métis deeply and said meaningfully, "Oh, where did I go wrong?" Métis's anger subsided. She blinked and asked curiously, "Actually, I also thought that my acting was perfect. After all, Athena and I are one, so I'm very familiar with her every move." "No, you're not familiar with her." Dustless raised his thumb and shook it. His expression did not change as he said, "If you didn't take the initiative to kiss me, I would have really thought you were Athena." "Is that the reason?" Métis frowned. She felt as if she had shot herself in the foot. She originally hoped that by sneaking an attack on Dustless, she could make this guy careless and let his guard down. Then, she would take the opportunity to kill him. She did not expect that the reason would be her own body. "My ability is a little special. I can sense a person's malice and kindness. When Athena kissed me before, although she was unwilling, at least she did not have the intention to kill me. But you made me feel a chill down my spine," Dustless said frankly. He felt as if he was being stared at by a venomous snake just now, and all his hair stood on end. "Is that so?" "So that's the reason. Even the wisest person would make a mistake," Métis said in frustration. Of course, after a second of silence, she regained her sinister smile. "Then, I'll kill you head-on." Black mist erupted from Otisai's body as he charged forward with a sharp black scythe in his hand. Around her, there were several pitch-black pythons. They looked ferocious and terrifying. They were several hundred meters long, and their bloody mouths were wide open, revealing their dense fangs. Let alone fighting, just looking at them was enough to make one tremble in fear. Untactful woman. A ripple suddenly appeared in the calm sky, and then countless small vortexes appeared. "Kai Bao Wang." Dustless let out a soft cry, and all kinds of strange divine weapons entered his vision. There were so many of them that even Mortis's crazy eyes were filled with shock. She smelled a threat. "All of you disappear." With a light wave of his arm, the various divine weapons that were suspended in the air all poured down, piercing toward the thick pythons around Mortis. "Pucci! Pucci! Pucci!" Although Mortis summoned dozens of pythons, Dustless used Kai Bao Wang to summon even more divine weapons. In the blink of an eye, thousands of divine weapons were shot out, and the ferocious pythons were instantly wiped out, leaving only Mortis alone. So fast. Mortis's face twitched, and she felt that the situation was very wrong. She came with the mentality of crushing silver, but the situation now seemed to be the complete opposite. Looking at the countless divine weapons pointing at her, Mortis realized that she was the one who was at a disadvantage. Their roles had been reversed, and she had turned from a predator to Dustless's prey. Swish, swish, swish. Mortis, whose heart was filled with hatred, did not give up. Instead, she quickly attacked. Not only did Dustless's strength not make her stop, but it also stimulated her ferocious nature. "It's good to teach you a lesson." With a wave of his hand, the divine weapons that filled the sky all fell, and the only target was Mortis. "Damn it, Why is there such a perverted authority? There are so many of them. Mortis had an unlucky expression and was very depressed. She had only wanted to test this god slayer, but who would have thought that this lecherous-looking kid was gold covered by sand? It was strange and unreliable. Swish, swish, swish. All kinds of fatal attacks came at full speed, and Mortis resisted very tenaciously. She waved her scythe and tried her best to block all the weapons that came at her. Clang, clang, clang. The blades kept slashing, but they could not hurt Mortis at all. Her strength and observation skills were not bad, and she could dodge the attacks in time every time. Heaven Lock. Seeing the opportunity, Dustless decisively used his killer move. The golden chain rushed out and went straight for Mortis. What a despicable guy. Although Mortis had been resisting all kinds of divine weapons, her attention was still focused on Dustless. When he attacked, she could clearly sense it. You call this despicable? Dustless rubbed his nose helplessly. If he wanted to kill Mortis, she would have been dead when she was bewitched by the illusion. She had allowed her to live until now out of compassion. Especially after being ambushed by Mortis for no reason, an abnormal desire had sprouted in her heart. It's not a bad idea to capture her and raise her. Dustless looked at Mortis and smiled evilly. He suddenly had this strange thought. One Mortis and Athena would not be enough to make him poor. Clang, clang, clang. The golden chain came straight at her. Mortis dodged sideways and chose to avoid the attack for the time being. Wu Chen's cunning smile made her shudder with fear and uneasiness all over her body. She looked at the heaven lock carefully, and the uneasiness in her heart grew. This is the natural enemy of gods. Seeing Mortis's depressed face, Dustless smiled evilly. If you are bound by the heaven lock, your life will be over. The higher your divinity, the tighter the heaven lock's binding will be. Chapter 1474. Hearing Dustless's words, Mortis sneered. God's genius? A weapon specialized in punishing gods? Such a thing had never been heard of since ancient times. Mortis had only done it because Dustless had made it up. Swish. 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 However, facing the heaven lock, Mortis took a detour. There was an inexplicable voice in her heart that reminded her not to be bound. The higher the divinity, the higher the binding rate? There is no such weapon in this world. Mortis tried her best to block the heaven lock and all kinds of divine weapons. Then you can give it a try. Wu Chen said expectantly. Mortis's mouth twitched. She said angrily, Do you think I am an idiot? Dustless's face turned cold. He stared at Mortis, whose face was distorted. The last gentleness in his eyes disappeared and was replaced by blood-red killing intent. If he didn't teach her a lesson, she wouldn't listen to him obediently. Bas, bas, bas. More and more lights flashed in the sky. The other side seemed to be connected to the treasure vault where divine weapons were kept. All kinds of strange weapons kept popping out. Swish, 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 swish. The void stopped, and the swaying sharpness all fell. Compared to before, the number of sharpness paled in comparison. Wave after wave, the number of sharpness increased by tens of times. Damn pervert! Mortis cursed in her heart. She raised her hands and legs, and several giant pythons with bloody mouths flew out. You still want to struggle? With a cold snort, Dustless showed disdain. He floated in the sky. Combined with the divine weapons that kept shooting out from the space behind him, he gave off an arrogant feeling. There were many weapons in the king's treasure that specialized in punishing gods, and the heaven lock was just one of them. PFFF. 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 Although the thick black pythons were strong and mighty, blocking a wave of attacks for Mortis, they could only admit defeat in the face of such a large number of attacks. In the end, they were all killed mercilessly. The only one left was Mortis. Mortis! Where did she go? After eliminating all the pythons, Dustless discovered that Mortis, who was supposed to be behind the pythons, had disappeared into thin air. I've been tricked. She only used these snakes to attract my attention. I didn't expect her to run away. How disappointing. In my heart, she's a Saint Seiya who will never admit defeat. Dustless said in astonishment. There was a trace of shock in his words. In his heart, Mortis had always been the representative of the stubborn faction. Unless he died in battle, he would never run away. Let's stop here. As long as you are still interested in Athena, we will meet again one day. Dustless was extremely calm. Métis' target was only Athena. As long as she did not give up on her plan, there would be a day when she would come looking for him. There was no need to worry. It's about time you guys stopped. Dustless turned his gaze and fell on the three girls fighting in the classroom. He sighed slightly. He was also troubled by this kind of situation. Trivial matters between women were the most difficult to resolve. If he did not handle it well, he might offend one of them for no reason. After all, women were famous for being petty. Clang, clang, clang. Sparks flew in the classroom. The three girls were in the midst of a fierce battle. Although Erika and Liliana were working together to deal with Akihihara Kaihahara, what surprised everyone was that the fierce Akihihara Kaihahara did not show any signs of defeat. What kind of freak is this guy? Even when Liliana and I are working together, we are still at a disadvantage. Erika was speechless. She glanced at Liliana. Although she did not say much, her face was full of shock. All of you stop. Liliana, put down the sword in your hand. Erika, put down the table in your hand. Akihihara Kaihahara, put down the bench in your hand. A calm roar suddenly came. The three girls seemed to have stepped into a gravity field. Moving became dozens of times more difficult and even breathing became difficult. The three of them were shocked. This mysterious person who suddenly disturbed the situation was too terrifying. Just the aura he revealed made them feel as if they had fallen into an ice cave. It was as if they had been abandoned by the whole world. Who are you? Which god of disobedience is it? The three girls shouted nervously at the same time. They tried to put some distance between them and the mysterious person. Who would have thought that their feet would fall uncontrollably just as they raised them? That supreme aura of a ruler made them not dare to act rashly. God of disobedience? I am not some god of disobedience. Akihihara Kaihahara is fine. After all, we have only met once. But Erika and Liliana, you two are so sad. After all, we live under the same roof every day, and you don't even remember my voice, said the black shadow in a gloomy tone. At the same time, he revealed his true identity. Dustless. Liliana and Erika were both stunned. They had been so focused on Akihihara Kaihahara that they did not notice Dustless's existence. So much so that they thought Dustless was the so-called god of disobedience. And you? Dustless frowned when his gaze fell on Akihihara Kaihahara. He said in dissatisfaction, I should have told you before that if you have any unrealistic ideas, you should give them up early. At the end of his words, the entire classroom, no, the entire teaching building, seemed to be in the middle of a turbulent sea. It swayed back and forth in great shock. Akihihara Kaihahara's face was instantly covered in cold sweat. Her gaze toward Dustless also gradually changed. However, what was not flattering was that it was not fear, but an indescribable excitement. Chapter 1475. Wu Chen's brows furrowed into a knot. He knew why Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard approached him. But no matter how outstanding I am, you don't have to look at me like that. Dustless expressed his disgust, cold sweat involuntarily dripping down his face. This look full of possessiveness was not a good sign. This guy wants to keep it all to himself? Looking at each other, Erika and Liliana could see the anger in each other's eyes. They were willing to sacrifice Dustless, but this excessive bastard wanted to take Dustless for himself. How hateful. Humph. You can go home now. This is a war between women, it has nothing to do with you. Erika's words were full of hostility. Everyone had a limit to their patience. You're right. Liliana and Qingqiu Courtyard's Hui Na nodded at the same time. Hearing this, Dustless just rolled his eyes and said unceremoniously, Right my ass. Dustless was almost 100% sure that as soon as he left, the girls would tear down the entire teaching building. No, they would forcibly tear down the entire Chongjia school. All of you stop. Dustless ordered again. This time it was different from before. His tone was obviously more serious, sharing the burden, and containing a majestic aura that could not be disobeyed. What a strong strength. Clear Autumn Courtyard Hui's eyes shone brightly. Her unconventional intentions were even more obvious. What's wrong with this guy? Why do you have to force me to make a move? No. She seems to be doing this on purpose. I remember that she once tested that kid from Kusanagi Protector. Dustless pondered. He had a whole new level of respect for Grace Courtyard. She was much more difficult to serve than the other girls. Let's stop here. I don't want to cause more trouble. It's too difficult for you to challenge me with your strength. Rolling his eyes, Dustless said bluntly. One arm, no, one finger is enough to deal with you. Upon hearing that, Erica and Liliana couldn't help but burst into laughter. Are you looking down on me? Hui of the Clear Autumn Courtyard stomped her foot angrily. Her tone had a hint of grievance. This fellow didn't give her any face at all. Even if this is the truth, you should pay attention to the situation. Your Majesty, let me test how sharp your sword is. With a cold expression, Grace Autumn Courtyard attacked with a sharp long sword. Her speed was unimaginably fast, even faster than when she was fighting Erica and Liliana. Could it be that this guy was hiding his strength? Looking at each other, Erica and Liliana could see the shock in each other's eyes. This girl who kept calling them foreigners was too strong. As far as humans are concerned, this speed is already the limit. With ripples in his eyes, Dustless shook his head slightly. Perhaps it was as fast as lightning in the eyes of Erica and Liliana, but it was as slow as a turtle in Dustless' eyes. In the end, Grace of Autumn Courtyard was still a slightly stronger human. Her nature had not changed. I'd like to see how you can stop me with one finger. Grace of the Clear Autumn Courtyard stomped hard on the ground, and her speed increased a little in an instant. She held the sharp blade with both hands, and the simple long sword slashed toward Wu Chen's face. Watch out! Liliana and Erica cursed worriedly. They secretly cursed that bastard Hui of the Clear Autumn Yard. What if he couldn't handle it? She might even cut off Dustless's head. However, what happened next proved that the two of them were overthinking things. Clang! 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 Grace Courtyard's broadsword was blocked. The ear-splitting noise stunned her. As if she had hit a rock with all her strength, Grace Courtyard's arm was numb. Looking over curiously, Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard was instantly stunned. His eyes widened as he saw Wu Chen easily block his attack with a single finger. He really blocked it with one finger? Grace of the Clear Autumn Courtyard was speechless. Looking at the delicate finger, she was furious. If this was an ordinary weapon, she could pretend nothing had happened and laugh it off. However, she was holding a divine weapon that could cut through iron like mud. Is his finger too hard, or is my sword too blunt? Grace Courtyard thought to herself. At the same time, she withdrew her sword. You? Dustless thought that she would stop, but who would have thought that the sword she withdrew would be like a venomous snake spitting out its tongue, revealing a sinister cold light once again. Taking advantage of Dustless's carelessness, she suddenly stabbed at him. You can't go back on your words after losing. Grace Courtyard chuckled, a hint of pride in her tone. It was as if she could already see Dustless's miserable defeat. This is the price for underestimating me. What a despicable woman! Liliana and Erica cursed. They did not expect Grace Courtyard to play this game. The two girls clenched their fists, but they could not stop her. The winner was king and the loser was in the wrong. It did not matter if she was despicable or not. The only thing worth paying attention to was the winner. This is boring. Glancing faintly at the cold light, Dustless did not even bother to move his hand this time. He directly revealed a strong temperament that he had experienced in several worlds. It has already reached the level of shock. Ka ka ka. All the desks and benches in the classroom turned into a large cloud of dust. Clang clang clang. Grace Courtyard's face changed greatly, and the sword that was stabbed at Dustless fell to the ground involuntarily. She just felt as if she was carrying an unprecedented mountain on her back. Her body was unable to move, and her strength was drained. Not to mention continuing to fight against Dustless, even breathing was dozens of times more difficult. Can you withstand Haushaku Hockey? Although it's difficult, it's not bad. Chapter 1476. People who have experienced hundreds of battles and come into contact with Haushaku Hockey, especially Dustless's Haushaku Hockey, have already reached an incredible level of power. At that time, there was absolutely no one in the world who could surpass him in Haushaku Hockey. Taruna Qingqiu was barely able to stabilize her body. To be honest, Dustless was really surprised. After all, from the outside, she was just a simple little girl. Stop it! Taruna Qingqiu, who couldn't bear it, was the first to admit defeat. Her face was sweating like rain, and her clothes were wet behind her back. Dustless could even see her exquisite body. Stop it! Erica and Liliana also said with embarrassed faces, although this supreme momentum was not directed at them. You've played enough of your boring tricks. The imposing manner of Mount Tai was completely restrained. Wu Chen's line of sight was also taken back. His mind was waning. Taruna Qingqiu's series of actions were actually to test Dustless. That's right, it was a test. Kusanagi Protector Court was an example. After a series of sad tests by Taruna Qingqiu, they barely passed in the end. However, when it was Dustless's turn, it was Taruna Qingqiu's turn. It's not over yet. Taruna Qingqiu smiled mysteriously and pointed to Dustless's feet. What is that? Liliana and Erica screamed at the same time. They saw a large group of black waves under Dustless's feet, as if it was connected to another world, penetrating the cold and isolated atmosphere. No matter how much nonsense you make, you have to stop. If a child excessively wears down an adult's heart, the consequences will be very serious. Dustless's tone was a little colder. Giggle. Hearing this, Taruna Qingqiu just laughed sweetly and whispered, if someone wants to see you, I can't help it. As a king, you should be magnanimous. Magnanimous? There's no need to talk about magnanimity with a barbarian like you who doesn't know the rules. Liliana said angrily. She had no good impression of Taruna Qingqiu. That's reasonable. Erica also nodded slightly. She then looked at Dustless worriedly and said, hurry up and come out. This guy is very cunning. What if you get taken advantage of? Hearing this, Wu Chen felt a burst of warmth in his heart. Although Erica's worry was superfluous, it was undeniable that she was sincere. You guys want to go too? Gazing at Erica and Liliana with a weird look, Hui of Qingqiu Courtyard said with a malicious smile, okay, I can fulfill your wish. The moment he said that, the same black hole as the one under Dustless's feet appeared next to Erica and Liliana's feet. With a strong gravitational force, it slowly swallowed Erica and Liliana who were struggling. In the blink of an eye, the two of them were gradually swallowed up. Since I have nothing better to do, I might as well go take a look at that so-called soul world. I also want to see what kind of divine being is inside. Dustless had already guessed the identity of the person who wanted to see him. Although it was a bit boring, it was also a good way to kill time. Swish, swish, swish. At the same time, a silent, sinister wind blew. The penetrating chill was like the descent of the death god, and one could vaguely hear the suppressed cries of ghosts and wolves. Silver, who had sensed the subtle changes, also recovered his composure. He stared at the indistinct shadow behind Hui of Qingqiu Courtyard. Dustless alerted loudly, watch out behind you. Sensing a cold, murderous aura, he warned loudly. Behind me? Hui of Qingqiu Courtyard was stunned. She subconsciously turned around, and a huge bone-piercing cold light immediately rushed into her eyes. It was only a little away from killing Hui of Qingqiu Courtyard. However, it was also at this moment that a lucky star fell from the sky. All things heavens beckoning. A gravitational force enveloped Hui of Qingqiu Courtyard, and then Dustless pulled her over. Only then did Hui of Qingqiu Courtyard escape from the gates of hell by a fluke. Otherwise, she would have stepped into another world, the underworld. Plop. Hui of Qingqiu Courtyard, who had yet to recover from the shock, was clearly in a daze. She seemed to still be immersed in the terrifying experience just now. You're here again? Frowning, Dustless scrutinized the person who had ambushed him for a few seconds. It was actually Mortis, who had left and returned. Are you surprised? Mr. God Slayer. Looking down at Dustless, Mortis said with an, I'm thinking for you, expression. Traveling to other places, I even gave you a female companion for free. You should thank me for being so compassionate. Is that so? The god of disobedience is still so considerate. How rare. Dustless ignored Mortis's teasing and responded calmly. This time, it was Mortis's turn to be puzzled. She asked, aren't you afraid that I'll devour Athena? While you're away, it's a good opportunity for me to make my move. I don't actually have the initiative in this matter. It's a private matter between the two of you. If Athena is willing to let you devour her, I can't stop you even if I want to. If she doesn't want to be devoured, then you can't do it either, Dustless explained calmly. Hearing this, Mortis's face was immediately filled with anger. She asked in a low voice, "Are you looking down on me? Do I need Athena's charity?" Dustless shrugged. One sentence was enough to make Mortis choke. "I'm just stating a fact." Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Mortis could not help but be furious. Just as she was about to argue with Dustless, the time had come. He and Hui of Qingqiu Courtyard had disappeared from Mortis's sight. "You ran fast enough. I won't let you off in the end," Mortis said viciously. Although she said that, she was rather glad in her heart. If Dustless had continued to stay here and cause trouble, her plan would have definitely failed. Mortis would not have been able to deal with his godly strength and unbelievable ability. Chapter 1477. It's really a magical world. In this strange world, the fog was rolling, and the whole world was white, as if it was the beginning of the hazy period, surrounded by dense primitive forests. "It's really hard for her to bring me to this world," Dustless said as he walked. When he first came to this world, Keiko Kyoto disappeared from the world and disappeared inexplicably. It was probably prepared by her, and she had long expected such a situation to happen. In this strange world, Keiko Kyoto was much more familiar with it than Dustless and others. Well, right at this time in front of Dustless, a heavy fog suddenly attacked. An ancient wooden house suddenly appeared in the originally empty area that was supposed to be devoid of anything. In addition, the wooden house was surrounded by a transparent barrier. This old man really knows how to enjoy life. Everywhere he goes, he brings a house with him, Dustless muttered. As a transmigrator, he knew that the person in this room was a god of disobedience called Susanoo, who was also Keiko Kyoto's helper. But what is this barrier used for? Looking at the transparent barrier outside the door, Dustless was quite curious and surprised. In the original work, he did not remember Kusanagi Protector had such an encounter. Kusanagi Protector entered the wooden house very easily. Gulp. In a rather antique room, a black-haired uncle drank a mouthful of wine, showed an expression of wanting more, and then wiped the remaining wine stains on the corner of his mouth. "Little boy, if you want to blame someone, blame that little girl Keiko. She asked me to test you." Pouring another glass of wine, Susanoo was about to drink it, but an untimely voice came from outside the door, and his alcohol addiction disappeared without a trace. "Of course I know that she asked you to do such a boring thing. Otherwise, I would have torn down your nest. Otherwise, do you still think you can enjoy drinking?" The door was gently pushed open, and there was a creak sound, revealing the young man's elegant face, and his black eyes were shining like stars. Susanoo was stunned for a long time. "How did you come in? What happened to the barrier I set up?" Susanoo, who had just recovered from his shock, ran out of the door with a stunned look on his face. If Dustless wanted to come in, he would have to break through the enchantment barrier. Susanoo was confident in his own strength, and the enchantment barrier he set up was strong enough. Originally, he expected Dustless to take a lot of effort to break in, but who would have thought that this guy was like a ghost without a physical body, floating directly in. There was no movement at all. How is this possible? Walking out of the door, Susanoo stared dumbfoundedly at the enchantment barrier. Susanoo's eyes widened as he saw that the enchantment barrier was intact, but inexplicably there was a circular hole in it. Without a doubt, it was Dustless's doing. "How did you do it?" Susanoo asked in disbelief. "How did you get in?" "It's simple. There's nothing to be shocked about." He unceremoniously picked up Susanoo's wine pot and gently took a sip. The spicy taste immediately spread throughout his internal organs. Dustless secretly sighed at the good wine. "My dojutsu, Kamui, can easily tear this kind of enchantment barrier, so it's normal that you can't detect it," Dustless explained slowly. "The method is very simple. Use Kamui to focus on a certain point, and then forcibly use dojutsu to tear it apart. Just like how Kakashi in Naruto was able to tear apart Uchiha Madara's truth-seeking ball. The enchantment barrier is completely superfluous for Kamui." "Okay, long story short." Putting down the jug of wine, Dustless calmed his thoughts and said coldly, "Let's stop the children's game. The entrance exam is a child's game. It's okay to play it occasionally, but don't do it again." Hearing this, the corners of Susanu's mouth twitched. Dustless's tone made him quite unhappy. It was like the relationship between a superior and a subordinate. He was also a kami, but it felt more like he was Dustless's little brother. "I don't care about that. I'm just following Kaina's arrangement." Shrugging his shoulders, Susanu put on an expression of a dead pig not afraid of boiling water. "The god of disobedience is really a guy who doesn't understand etiquette. Don't you think you should thank me?" Dustless glanced at Susanu lightly and said, "Thank you." Hearing this, the corners of Susanu's mouth twitched violently, and he cursed in his heart. "You brat! You broke into my territory and accused me indiscriminately, but now you want me to thank you? How ridiculous!" "What do I have to thank you for?" Susanu asked in a strange tone. "You are still alive." Dustless gave a deceptive answer. Hearing this, Susanu was stunned for a long time, and then like a provoked lion, his whole body trembled. He finally understood what Dustless meant. "You mean, I should thank you for being alive and talking to you?" Susanu asked pointedly. "In other words, you let me live because of Kaina's face? Otherwise, I would have died a long time ago. This old man understood what you meant correctly, right?" Hearing this, Dustless glanced at Susanu in surprise, and then immediately nodded and said softly, "That's right, otherwise your head would have been cut off a long time ago." Susanu almost spat out the wine he just drank. "This guy's words are too infuriating. I am a real kami. You think you are so great just because you are a god slayer? Do you have to look down on me like this? To be honest, I also want to see how strong the legendary god slayer is," Susanu said in a deep voice. The surface of his body emitted a large purple-black light, and the quiet house suddenly shook with a ka-ka-ka sound. There were obvious cracks all around. Chapter 1478. 10 billion divine beasts danced in Susanu's mind. Dustless's arrogance made him lose face. "No matter what, I'm still a god, and you're just a human. Although you're a god slayer, you should at least take care of an old man." "Ignorant brat," Susanu complained in his mind, but he put on a helpless expression. He released his powerful aura, but Dustless was not affected at all. He leisurely drank his wine and quietly mocked his powerlessness. "Just say what you want to say." Dustless found it rather funny to see this boorish middle-aged man so depressed. He said playfully, "You're a god, but I'm a god slayer. If you don't give me a reasonable explanation, you're going to be in trouble today." "You, forget it." Despite his displeasure, Susanu chose to swallow his anger. There was no need to fight Dustless over such a small matter. In particular, Dustless had always crushed his opponents with decisive strength. He might even fail miserably this time. "I called you here because it's about Métis." On the other side, Kaona, Erica, and Liliana of the Clear Autumn Courtyard were engaged in another battle. In this unfamiliar world, even if Liliana and Erica worked together to deal with Kaona of the Clear Autumn Courtyard, they had no advantage. In fact, they were at an absolute disadvantage. Swish! 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 The three figures clashed, releasing powerful energy ripples. Wave after wave of destructive shockwaves spread out from the center of the battle, and everything that came into contact with it was reduced to ashes. Boom! 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 Two of the figures were sent flying, their bodies smashing into the mountain, creating bottomless pits. Upon closer inspection, they were Liliana and Erica. "Our swordsmanship is on par, but that guy's sword should be some kind of divine artifact," Erica said unwillingly, feeling that Kaona of the Clear Autumn Courtyard had an unfair advantage. "Throw your sword away if you have the guts." She wanted to say this, but she found it hard to say it out loud. Everyone knew that the winner was king, and the loser was a bandit. As for the process, no one cared. Attack her from the front and back. Liliana was sweating profusely, and so was Erica. Their clothes were soaked in sweat. Their clothes were almost transparent, but no one appreciated their graceful cleavage. In this world, the two of them were at a great disadvantage. Full of fighting spirit, Huina of the Clear Autumn Courtyard praised, but her tone was colder. She raised her black long sword up high with a serious expression. An indescribable aura erupted from her body as she chanted an ancient and cryptic incantation. "O heavenly sword of gathering clouds, with my body as a sacrifice, I am willing to appease the raging spirits." After she finished chanting the incantation, Kaina's body began to change. Her entire body turned black, and her sword-wielding right arm was wrapped in a spiraling substance. That was not the most important thing. What kind of monster is this bastard? She's more like a god-slayer than a human. Erica and Liliana were both dumbfounded. They were already at a disadvantage in this world. Now that Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Yard had unleashed her true form, the situation was perilous. The two of them had no chance of winning. I see. That's all you want to say? After a few minutes, Dustless endured his boredom and carefully listened to Susanu's explanation. He had a clearer understanding of Mortis's purpose. Yes, that crazy woman is very dangerous. Compared to the relaxed Dustless, Susanu was much more serious. He took a sip of wine and said, "She intends to devour the sky of the world you live in to take revenge on the sky god Zeus. I know about such trivial matters. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave." Dustless stretched and stood up to move his stiff body with a bored expression. Seeing Dustless's nonchalant expression, Susanu's mouth twitched violently. He cursed, "You don't know how to respect people at all. I've been talking for a long time, but you're about to fall asleep. How dare you?" Susanu was furious. Looking at Dustless's face, he felt extremely unlucky. Goodbye. Realizing that time was gradually passing, Dustless's temper was finally worn out. If he guessed correctly, Keiko Takumi must have gone to find trouble with Liliana and Erica. In this world, it seems that as long as I think of someone's appearance in my mind, I can go to their side. After saying that, Dustless closed his eyes and recalled Liliana and Erica's appearance in his mind. Then, he felt a powerful force pulling him away. Boom, boom, boom. The deafening sounds of explosions rang out incessantly. Swords and sabers danced in the air, and sparks flew in all directions. The huge impact made people feel as if they were brushing past their bodies, making them feel as if they had been slapped several times. Dustless opened his eyes and saw Erica and Liliana, who had been suppressed to the point of being in a sorry state. Ah! They're being suppressed so badly. Dustless glanced at Erica and Liliana, who were sweating profusely. Due to their wet clothes, he saw some places that he shouldn't see. Ah! An inhuman roar came from Keiko Takumi's mouth. Then, a huge slash shot out. Liliana and Erica were in danger. She went a little overboard. Dustless frowned. This powerful slash left a mess wherever it went. Its momentum and sharpness were extremely ferocious. It had already exceeded the limits of what the two women could endure. Dustless could even guarantee that Erica and Liliana would be crippled even if they didn't die. In a flash, he stood in front of Erica and Liliana like a wall. Chapter 1479. The pitch-black blade was unstoppable. Seeing Dustless appear, Takayuki Garden, whose mind was occupied by Tian Songyun's power, only hesitated for a moment. Then, she attacked mercilessly. Not only did she not show mercy, but she also attacked more fiercely. Dustless caught a trace of bone-chilling coldness. Immediately, a bloody light appeared in his hand. An extremely evil and slender long sword appeared in Dustless's hand. The surrounding space suddenly became cold and piercing. Miserable cries and howls could be faintly heard. This sword was the first ghost blade that Dustless got from the 5 Elder Stars, the King of Pirates. Clang, 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 clang. The first ghost blade was unsheathed. Dustless, who was holding the first ghost blade, was extremely terrifying. His whole body was filled with scarlet mist, which was the embodiment of blood. His eyes had turned red, like a wild beast that was about to devour a human. Facing the black long sword, Wu Chen pursed his lips and chuckled. He didn't show any signs of weakness. A cold light swept out from his strong and powerful arm. Boom, boom, boom. Unparalleled airwaves roared and spread. Erica and Liliana, who were unprepared, were affected by the explosive power and were blown away by the strong wind. Crack, crack, crack. In addition, a slight cracking sound could be heard. How is this possible? Cracks appeared on the Kusanagi sword? Takayuki Garden's expression changed greatly. Her voice was filled with endless shock. Obviously, there was something wrong with her voice. It was a vigorous and vicissitude voice. Is it that god called Tian Songyun? Dustless understood that Takayuki Garden had been corroded by Tian Songyun's power. Where did this bastard get so much strength? Tian Songyun cursed in his heart. There were some cracks on the Kusanagi sword. This was just the bad result of the first confrontation. What would happen if they fought a few more times? Tian Songyun had goosebumps. That sword is very strong. Tian Songyun took a deep breath. This was the first time he had seen such a situation. In just the first clash, the Heaven Cluster Cloud sword had already shown signs of cracking. Dustless's weapon was not inferior to the Heaven Cluster Cloud sword. Although Dustless's first-generation Ghost Blade had cracks, the shock it brought to Tian Songyun was indescribable. Don't be so sad. It's just a broken saber. Don't worry about it. Wu Chen caught a glimpse of Tian Songyun's gloomy face and tried to persuade her out of goodwill. A broken saber? Clear Autumn Courtyard's Hui Na's mouth visibly twitched. Then she angrily roared. This is a divine artifact. How many are there in the world? To be able to fight against my weapon and not be at a disadvantage, that weapon of yours must be a divine weapon, right? I'm not sure about that. I just snatched it along the way. Hearing this, Dustless shook his head. Back then, he had only robbed the 5 honored stars. As for whether the first-generation Ghost Blade was a divine artifact or not, Dustless did not know. However, there were countless rumors about the first-generation Ghost Blade. There were even rumors that the first-generation Ghost Blade was a weapon that could destroy the world. Even if it was not a divine artifact, it would not be too far off. It's just a weapon. If it's destroyed, then so be it. I have plenty of such things. Dustless casually said. His expression made him look like a nouveau riche. He lacked everything, but he didn't lack weapons. There were countless heaven-defying weapons in the king's treasure. Even if the first-generation Ghost Blade was destroyed, Dustless would not care. After all, he still had the Heaven Cluster Cloud sword to accompany him. Plenty. Tian Songyun was so depressed that he almost vomited blood. He was so angry that he almost choked to death. It was true that he had plenty of weapons, but not everyone had a pile of abilities like him. Divine artifacts of all kinds were as common as sand. This guy isn't purposely attacking her, is he? Erica and Liliana looked at each other with bitter smiles. Their eyes were also staring at the first-generation Ghost Blade in Dustless's hand. The evil that wanted to destroy the world was definitely not a joke. Even hundreds of meters away, they felt as if they had fallen into hell. Brat, don't be too proud. Tian Songyun roared. He forcefully endured the anger of having his Tian Songyun sword destroyed. He raised his hand and a blood-red light shot towards Dustless. There was a flaw in his precious weapon. He really wanted to kill. Although swordsmanship is not my forte, but a powerful spiritual pressure erupted from his body. Dustless stared at the incoming attack. He also slashed out an even more majestic sword pressure. Gathering spiritual pressure on the blade and using all my strength to release it, I can still do such a simple thing. Ka ka ka. The earth was like a piece of paper, and the tyrannical slash tore it apart. It was easier than cutting vegetables, and a crack several meters deep was directly cut into the ground. This guy actually knows how to use a sword. Not to mention, his swordsmanship is incredible. Erica and Liliana were both surprised. It was the first time they had seen Dustless use a sword, so they were quite surprised. Incredible? Dustless was a little proud. He had never learned swordsmanship, but the enemies he had fought before were as many swordsmanship masters as carps crossing the river. For example, Hawkeye in One Piece, Baldy Gorosei, Captain Yamamoto in Shinigami, and Aizen. Their swordsmanship was actually not bad. Over time, Dustless imitated them. Unknowingly, his swordsmanship also caught up. It was just that he didn't notice it. Pucci! Dustless's slash easily tore apart Tian Songyun's light, but its power was greatly reduced. However, its momentum did not decrease. Wherever it went, a hideous crack would flash. I might die if I'm not careful. Tian Songyun was sweating, and his heart was cold. He vaguely saw the Grim Reaper with a scythe. Chapter 1480. Tian Songyun's worries were not unfounded. The incoming slash gave off a loud boom, and the Soul World, which was originally filled with clouds and mist, was affected. Even the weather started to change. The mist receded and was replaced by the setting sun. It was desolate. Leaves were falling, and the wind was howling. It felt like the end of the world.
No, this guy doesn't dare to kill me.
Suddenly realizing that he was currently occupying Hui Na's body in the clear autumn courtyard, Tian Songyun relaxed. Although his methods were despicable and were despised by others, surviving was more important than anything else.
Kill me if you have the guts.
Tian Songyun displayed his shameless abilities. His mocking voice was filled with arrogance and disdain.
Kill me if you have the guts, and your little lover will die as well.
However, there was a saying that one would not die if one did not seek death. If one sought death, especially in front of someone stronger than oneself, then one would definitely die. I didn't plan to kill you, but humans were fickle. At first, Dustless only wanted to teach him a lesson and warned Tian Songyun not to occupy Hui Na's body in the clear autumn courtyard. However, there were some arrogant people in the world. Since you want to die so much, I'll fulfill your wish. With an evil smile, Dustless swung the first-generation ghost blade again. A huge slash appeared. Its scale and power were even greater than before. Boom, boom, boom. The power of the two slashes overlapped, and the power immediately changed. It was magnified by several times, and the aftershock was unstoppable.
The innocent ground was instantly covered in blood as if it was being torn apart by gravity.
The shocking cracks made one feel despair. Even the sky was covered by the flashes of the slashes. Nothing was worth mentioning. I'm really done for this time. Tian Songyun's heart turned cold. He did not expect Dustless to be so ruthless. His attitude changed faster than flipping a book. He wanted to kill him, and he did not care about his feelings at all. Even if I die, I'll drag you down with me. After all, he was a god. Tian Songyun would not just wait for death. Even a dog would jump over a wall when it was forced into a corner.
Moreover, he was a true god.
Swish, swish, swish. The heavenly sword of gathering clouds was swung a few times, and several streaks of cold light filled with murderous intent shot out. Being forced into a dead end, Tian Songyun decisively chose to drag Dustless down with him. He had used up all of his strength in these few slashes, trying to forcefully tear apart the world-exterminating light. Pucci! Dreams were beautiful, but reality was cruel. The moment the Heaven Cluster Cloud Sword's attack came into contact with Dustless's attack, it crumbled in the blink of an eye. There was no comparison at all. The difference between the two was like heaven and earth. What would happen if a feather collided with a flame? Needless to say, the end result was that he would be turned into ashes. Tian Songyun's attack was also like this. The moment the two made contact, he died. Pucci! The flash of light pierced through clear autumn courtyard's Hui Na's body. She herself was unharmed, but the divine weapon she was holding, the heavenly sword of gathering clouds, turned into countless fragments that danced in the wind. The students from the clear autumn courtyard are going to cry. Liliana and Erica said with a headache. Dustless had destroyed someone else's weapon. If it was an ordinary weapon, it would be fine, but the heavenly sword of gathering clouds' value was extremely rare. With Dustless's status, even if he sold his entire fortune, he would not be able to afford it. He did not have that much money, and he was even living off a woman. Without Shizuka Kusanagi, he would probably be homeless. In reality, the other person was also crying. Damned brat! Susanoo was so angry that he smashed the table. The moment the heavenly sword of gathering clouds was destroyed, he sensed it. Although his heart was filled with rage, Susanoo did not have the courage to look for trouble with Dustless. The difference in strength made him reconsider his attitude towards Dustless. The strong always had some privileges. Bastard! Tian Songyun was furious. His consciousness was already collapsing. He knew very well what this meant. What did it mean that the god of disobedience was defeated by the god slayer? Dustless would obtain the authority of the heavenly sword of gathering clouds in the future. Hateful! 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 Tian Songyun was so angry that he gritted his teeth. His plan to drag Dustless down with him had failed. He was extremely depressed. If he could materialize, he would have a constipated expression on his face. I know that you are unwilling to accept this. Feeling Tian Songyun's resentment, Dustless sneered and said, To be honest, even if I obtained your trash authority, I would not care about it. It was just the heavenly sword of gathering clouds. He had many divine equipment. Why would he care?
So, I've decided. As soon as he finished speaking, a large black sword appeared in Dustless's hand. It was exactly the same as the heavenly sword of gathering clouds that Sakura no Tsuya had just used.
You're still saying that you don't need it? You're already using it. Tian Songyun's tone was filled with disdain. Just as he was about to mock Dustless before his consciousness disappeared, a black sphere appeared in his right hand. Seeing this, Tian Songyun did not know why, but he suddenly had a bad feeling. Realizing that something was wrong, Tian Songyun trembled and asked, "What are you doing?" "Why are you asking me?" Dustless curled his lips and mocked. "Idiot, did you grow up eating fodder? This sphere is called the truth-seeking jade. Everything that comes into contact with it will vanish. Do you understand what I'm trying to do? Could it be?" Tian Songyun's heart skipped a beat. He immediately understood Dustless's intention.
He roared angrily. "You bastard, are you trying to destroy the heavenly sword of gathering clouds that you are holding right now?"
Smart. Too bad there is no reward. Dustless gave him a thumbs up. He was indeed planning to do so. Wasn't it just a heavenly sword of gathering clouds? Wasn't it just an authority? I don't care. Chapter 1481. In any case, destroying the Kusanagi sword was not a big deal. Authority was not that important. For example, Dustless's glint fruit could also be compressed into the Kusanagi sword. How dare this guy? Not only was Tian Songyun shocked, but Liliana and Erika were also petrified. Although they did not know the consequences of Dustless' actions, they were shocked by Dustless' attitude of not caring about divine tools and authority. For example, Marquis Warban had a fanatical pursuit of authority. He did not even hesitate to use rituals to summon disobedient gods. The other godslayers were the same. They had a morbid obsession with authority. And now, Dustless wanted to destroy the Kusanagi sword. Tian Songyun wanted to skin him alive. This was blatant contempt and a slap in the face. I don't believe it. Tian Songyun clenched his teeth. He still felt that Dustless was tricking him. As long as his consciousness dissipated, this guy would definitely shamelessly put away the Kusanagi sword. Then I'll open your eyes. It's just a broken sword. Divine tool my ass. Dustless curled his lips. The others were speechless. This guy's head must have been caught by a door. The so-called divine tool became worthless after coming out of his mouth. Under the gazes of Tian Songyun, Liliana, and Erika, the sharpness of the truth-seeking jade gradually approached the Kusanagi sword. Ka. The black and sharp blade could not withstand the sharpness of the truth-seeking jade. After a short stalemate, it gradually began to peel off, shattering into pieces all over the ground. It really shattered? The three pairs of eyes stared unblinkingly. They could not help but cry out in shock. This guy needs to be taught a lesson. Such a prodigal behavior must be confined. This is not money. He can earn it back if he loses it. What does he think authority is? Erika, who woke up from her shock, stomped her feet. She had been in a daze just now. She only woke up when the Kusanagi sword completely shattered and disappeared. However, it was already too late. The Kusanagi sword would not return. Indeed, it needs to be properly disciplined. That's a divine artifact, not some scrap metal. Liliana nodded in agreement. The destruction of the sky-gathering cloud sword meant that Dustless had given up on this authority. There's nothing to be concerned about. Authority is dispensable to me. Dustless smiled. When he had no power, he had still killed Welslana and Makulto, and Marquis Warban as well. In short, there was no rule stating that the slaying god did not require any so-called authority. Why hasn't he awakened yet? Looking at Hui Na of the clear autumn courtyard, who had fallen to the ground, Dustless frowned slightly. He quickly walked over and saw that the young girl's expression was somewhat pale. Do I need to do CPR? Dustless's appetite was aroused as he stared at those delicate red lips that were like a blooming rose. He would be an idiot if he didn't take advantage of the situation. Moreover, Grace of Clear Autumn Courtyard had already fainted. Aiming at Hui Na's mouth,
Dustless was about to press his lips on it when Erica's ear-piercing voice rang out like a resentful woman.
Are you going to turn into a weird uncle?
These words made Dustless stop as if he had been electrocuted. He rolled his eyes at Erica in annoyance and finally gave up on the idea of taking advantage of the situation. Just as he was about to let Erica do CPR for him, Dustless suddenly felt that his lips were both hot and cold. It was soft, as if something was blocking his mouth. He widened his eyes and saw that it was the shy Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard.
King, thank you for saving me. Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard had two cute little dimples on her face. Her cheeks were red as if she was drunk. How do you plan to compensate her for the sky-gathering cloud sword?
That's a divine artifact.
Seeing that Dustless and Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard were glued to each other like honey, Erica was furious. She deliberately emphasized the word, divine artifact. Liliana also looked like she was watching a good show. The preciousness of the Kusanagi sword was self-evident.
This is indeed a headache.
Dustless frowned and was in a dilemma for a moment. He had countless abilities and could barely use them all, but it was impossible for him to give them to others. Moreover, he didn't have the technology to forge weapons. As a knight, how could Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard not have a sword?
By the way, his eyes lit up and fell on the slender blade of the first-generation ghost blade.
Dustless smiled and said, "If you don't mind, my Tachi will be yours in the future." "King, are you sure?" Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard was dizzy and shocked. This long blade was filled with an ancient aura. It was obviously not an ordinary item.
The Tachi was not unsheathed for the time being, but the evil aura it emitted was enough to make people's scalp tingle and tremble with fear.
Of course. Dustless casually handed the first-generation ghost blade to Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard and said awkwardly, "I used too much strength just now and accidentally broke the Kusanagi sword. Sorry." Erica and Liliana secretly cursed the great swindler. The two of them had seen Dustless destroy the Kusanagi sword with their own eyes. However, the two of them were slightly touched by his magnanimity. Most god slayers treated their subordinates as chess pieces. Liliana deeply understood this. She used to be Marquis Oben's chess piece.
If he had a super divine weapon like the first-generation ghost blade, Marquis Oben would probably sleep with it in his arms, not to mention giving it away.
However, the first-generation ghost blade is a little difficult to control.
"This weapon is very evil," Dustless said solemnly.
The first-generation ghost blade's previous owners had all died unnatural deaths. We can all see that this is a powerful demonic blade, but it suits me very well. Clear Autumn Courtyard Huey's eyes were like torches and the first-generation Gue Che's unbelievably strong evil chi was daunting. Facing this long blade required a great deal of courage, so taming it was even more difficult. However, Hui Na of the Clear Autumn Courtyard was very interested. As a swordsman, she was most interested in swords. Chapter 1482. Clear Autumn Courtyard Huey's eyes were filled with starlight, and the smile on her face was hard to hide. Her eyes were narrowed into crescent moons. Just as she was about to communicate with Dustless, she found that he had disappeared. A woman's perception is still sharp. Dustless's mouth twitched wildly. Erica immediately noticed Clear Autumn Courtyard Huey's intentions, and pulled Dustless away from her at an incredible speed. Her speed was so fast that even Dustless was stunned for a moment. "Good blade." After observing for a while, Clear Autumn Courtyard Hui nodded and stroked the first-generation ghost blade's simple blade. It would let out a burst of cold screams, giving people the illusion of a mountain of corpses and a sea of blood. Not only that, the first-generation ghost blade surface also erupted with a demonic light to resist Clear Autumn Courtyard Hui. This blade is the first-generation ghost blade, an out-and-out demonic blade. It can rival and even surpass your heaven-gathering cloud sword. It will take time to tame it, so take it slow. Dustless cautioned. The first-generation ghost blade was snatched from the 5 honored stars. He had no problem controlling it, but ordinary people would die tragically if they encountered the first-generation ghost blade. However, at this moment, Clear Autumn Courtyard Hui seemed to be possessed. She turned a deaf ear to Dustless's words and stroked the first-generation ghost blade back and forth like a sun closer than her own sun. Buzz buzz buzz. The first-generation ghost blade let out a burst of clear cries and a large demonic light,
continuing to resist clear autumn courtyard Huey's touch. After all, it had only one master. Dustless. Good blade. The more the first-generation ghost blade resisted, the more pleased clear autumn courtyard Hui became. The divine blade had a spirit. For the first-generation ghost blade to be so human-like, it indirectly showed that it was not a fish in a pond. Its surging demonic power was abnormal to the extreme. Compared to clear autumn courtyard Huey's heaven-gathering cloud sword, the first-generation ghost blade was obviously more difficult to control. After all, this was a demonic blade, an evil existence that could rival the heaven-gathering cloud sword. It was not easy to control it. Let's go back for now. Dustless patted clear autumn courtyard Huey's shoulder. Since first-generation Gui Che had gifted it to clear autumn courtyard Hui Na, Dustless wouldn't ask for it back. He had too many weapons in his possession, and the number of swords and blades was even greater. For example, Captain Yamamoto's Zanpakuto, Ryujin Jaka, is currently under the control of Dustless. Moreover, after the first time, Terumi Kayamoto is also one of his own people, so this deal is not a loss for him. How generous of you, Erika said in a sour tone. Although Liliana did not say anything, her eyes were full of resentment. The two women were so jealous that the smell of vinegar was everywhere. She and Erika had been admiring Dustless for far longer than Hui Na of the Blue Autumn Courtyard, but they had not received a single valuable gift. Cough, cough, cough. Dustless was embarrassed. Sometimes it was difficult to be impartial. Time to go back. As if nothing had happened just now, Erika's smile was as beautiful as a spring breeze. She wasn't an unreasonable person, so after complaining for a while, she felt relieved. It was Dustless's fault for destroying someone else's artifact. That's true. Dustless nodded slightly, and a strange look flashed in his eyes. He hoped that Métis did not do anything to Athena. In Shizuka Kusunagi's house. As usual, everyone went to work and school. But the room that was usually warm was now cold and piercing, and filled with a different kind of oppression. Where did Athena go? The girl asked in a cold and arrogant tone. She was sitting on the sofa, looking down at the two people opposite her with a slight smile on her face. Wanli Yoli and Shizuka Kusunagi, who were tied up, were terrified. After Athena pledged her allegiance to Dustless, her relationship with the other girls was pretty good. This, Athena, was different from the previous Athena. She was cold, like an evil spirit running out of hell, and her whole body was filled with a bone-piercing chill. This person was Métis. I don't know. Wanli Yoli and Shizuka Kusunagi gritted their teeth. Aye. As expected of that guy's companion. Your sincere feelings are admirable, but you two are still young. Haven't you lived long enough? Do you still miss this beautiful world? If you refuse to answer me, you will die. Métis used both kindness and power, and at the same time released his divine power. It's so cold. Wanli Yoli and Shizuka Kusunagi shivered. Both of them were ordinary humans. Although Wanli Yoli was a witch, she was not suitable for fighting, so she could not resist Métis's power. Boom boom boom. At this moment, there was a sudden explosion in the room, followed by a ray of warm light that shone on Wanli Yoli and Shizuka Kusunagi. The two girls felt better. Athena? Métis raised his head and found that the room was penetrated, and a face came into view. You came at the right time. It's time for us to become one. Without saying much, Métis's eyes were filled with ambition. This was the best opportunity. If Dustless came back, he would have to retreat again. You want to use them to threaten me? You are getting more and more despicable. Athena was expressionless, as if she was talking about something insignificant. However, deep in her eyes, there was a flash of disappointment and loneliness. Threaten? What a joke. As a god, why would I threaten you with mere humans? Don't compare me with those scumbags. Métis showed a disapproving look. Although her heart was distorted by the flames of revenge, there were some things that she had her bottom line. This time, she was only looking for Athena to fight. After dealing with Athena and recovering to her peak, she would look for Dustless to settle the score. As for the matter of devouring the sky and destroying the world, she suddenly felt that it was not important. She had to get rid of Dustless as soon as possible. Otherwise, sooner or later, she would be traumatized.
Chapter 1483.
Athena stared at Mortis with a complicated gaze. To be honest, she really did not want to fight with Mortis. After all, their relationship was understandable. After we become one, I will settle the score with your lover.
Mortis gritted his teeth. He did not have a good impression of Dustless and could only blame him. A good plan had been ruined by that cheater. You want to deal with him? Athena's eyebrows relaxed. After hearing Mortis's true intention, Athena calmed down. The situation was one-sided anyway.
It doesn't matter if you devour him.
Athena suddenly smiled.
Although it's a little troublesome, the result is the same.
I'm still the same person.
You. Hearing this, Mortis's mouth twitched violently. What Athena meant was, even if you devour me, you will still be turned over by Dustless. Let them go first.
Athena pointed at Wanli Yoli and Shizuka Kusanagi.
Let them go, and I'll be willing to be devoured by you. Mortis's eyes were filled with killing intent.
When he heard Athena's words, he did not feel happy. Instead, his anger surged. Athena was clearly looking down on him. Athena wanted to express that no matter what happened in the end, the winner would be Dustless. Even if she was devoured now, it would not be an exception.
Disappear before I change my mind.
Athena glanced at Wanli Yoli and Shizuka Kusanagi coldly.
Looking at Mortis's ferocious expression, she was quite upset by Athena's words.
His twisted face was even scarier, and his body was filled with deadly pressure.
But what about you?
Wanli Yoli looked at Athena worriedly. She was still fine, but Shizuka Kusanagi had already fainted. Being in close contact with a god, Wanli Yoli was barely better, but Shizuka Kusanagi had already fainted.
Don't you trust that guy?
Athena asked calmly, her eyes shining with a strange light. At first, Athena did not intend to be devoured by Mortis. When the two of them fought, Athena was naturally not afraid of Mortis. However, she soon changed her mind. To be honest, I also want to see how strong he is.
That guy was very powerful. He was not a god, but it was impossible to say that he was a human.
When did humans become so powerful? He is a god slayer, but he never uses the power of a god. The gods that he has defeated so far have all relied on his own strength. Athena said expectantly. In other words, you want to use me? Métis felt as if he had just swallowed a fly. Even though Athena was willing to be devoured and she was happy about it, Métis could not hurt her like this. He was using Métis as a tool to fight with Dustless. According to Dustless's personality, he would definitely rescue Athena in the end, and she would be fine. On the other hand, Métis was destined for tragedy.
Don't regret it.
After glaring fiercely at Athena, Métis finally pounced over and violently covered Athena's mouth. There was no doubt that he wanted to devour her. Damn it, even if you are a traitor, you can't do this. Dustless, who was in the dark, was speechless. He was watching every move of Athena and Métis. Towards this pair of mother and daughter who were in cahoots with each other, an unrealistic thought in his heart became more and more impulsive.
Let's wait and see.
Dustless leaned against the wall leisurely, quietly waiting for the two to merge. Killing Métis would be too easy for the two of you. Athena is my servant, so her mother will also become my servant. This mother-daughter combination is very good. Dustless was secretly pleased with himself as the corner of his mouth curled up in a sinister arc. You two idiots actually, I can't wait for you to do this. He glanced back at Métis, who was gradually merging into one. The unbelievably huge divine power swept through the world, and the cloudless blue sky dimmed. It was replaced by a cold darkness. Athena was gradually disappearing, and a brand new Métis was slowly forming. Even though he could interfere with their happy occasion, Dustless wisely chose to ignore it. I've always wanted to add Métis to my servant team, but I didn't have a good opportunity.
This time you've helped me, Athena? Dustless's sinister smile became even more pronounced.
There was no reason for him to keep Métis like a bandit. It was obviously impossible for him to be a servant who could do anything he wanted. There was no suitable excuse. However, it was different now. Métis had recovered to his peak and would definitely come to take revenge on Dustless. After defeating her, Athena would also be speechless if he kept her by his side. Athena had no right to interfere with how the victor would be captured. Has it finally stopped? Dustless looked up slightly and realized that the huge commotion had suddenly stopped. He looked up and saw that the two figures had completely disappeared. Are you still sneaking around there? Dustless!
A majestic roar entered his ears.
Dustless frowned slightly and looked over. Métis, who had recovered to his peak, was staring at him arrogantly. No wonder you're so arrogant and confident.
This form is indeed very strong.
Dustless nodded slightly. Before Métis had merged with Athena, he couldn't detect his presence.
After the two of them merged, he immediately ascended to the sky and discovered Dustless hiding in the dark as if he had eyes in the sky.
TSK. You've become stronger, but your tolerance has become smaller. Don't come and kill me, I'm so scared. Although he said that, Dustless's face was full of provocation.
He curled his finger and looked at Métis with an expression that said, "Come and hit me if you dare."
It was extremely annoying. Chapter 1484. Mortis was covered in a layer of black fog. She gritted her teeth and glared at this B*****starred. She cursed in her heart. Don't be so cocky. Will you die? Cut the crap. I want to see how strong you are. It was rare for Mortis to talk nonsense. Her bickering skills were too weak. Even if 100 of her joined forces, they would not be a match for Dustless. Boom, boom, boom. Black light exploded, and a tornado swept over. Dustless frowned.
He was as calm as a rock as he stared at the wind and waves in front of him.
The black tornado was quite powerful. It destroyed all the surrounding buildings. A trick to please the crowd. Dustless shook his head in disdain. He completely ignored the existence of the black tornado. Although it was powerful, it was just a trick to him. The tornado crushed Dustless's body, but it would heal again. It was useless. His expression did not change, and he continued to stare at Athena with a contemptuous look. Be my servant. Dustless stroked his chin and smiled.
Métis's eyes were spitting fire as she glared at Wu Chen.
Her face was bright red. She was about to explode from Wu Chen's words. Who was she? Mortis. She was a true god. Although Dustless was a god slayer, he was still a human. At most, he was a slightly stronger human. You want me to be your servant? Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning when you're talking? Mortis's spittle flew all over the place as he cursed in his heart. In anger, she waved her slender hand gently. The giant pythons in the sky poured down. Their bloody mouths were locked on Dustless. If they were not careful, they would be torn apart. I will be struck by lightning? Who dares to strike me? Hearing this, Dustless didn't get angry. His tone was calm and indifferent. Although he wasn't a god and didn't have the so-called godhead, after experiencing several worlds in succession, countless gods had died in his hands. Even if he wasn't a god, Dustless's strength was far beyond that of a god. In his opinion, she should kneel down and be grateful that he was willing to let go of his means to recruit Motis as his servant. The so-called god of disobedience, to put it bluntly, was nothing more than a stray dog. In Dustless's words, I was kind enough to give you a warm home. Not only are you not grateful, but you also want to tear down my home. How dare you? Boom, boom, boom. Dustless didn't dodge, so the pythons that filled the sky tore him to pieces, scattering his body parts all over the ground. Humph, that's all you've got. I really don't understand why Athena thinks so highly of you. Métis raised his nose arrogantly, looking as if he was invincible. Swish, 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 swish. A sharp sound suddenly came from behind. Métis was shocked. The sky suddenly became abnormally hot, and the water and blood in her body evaporated at an accelerated rate. After a moment of shock, Métis instinctively retreated. Fast reaction.
Dustless, who was holding the red blade, nodded slightly and gave her a look of praise.
That weapon of yours. Staring at the tachi in Dustless's hand with fear, Métis couldn't keep calm. She felt the water in her body evaporating rapidly, and her blood also disappeared mysteriously. If this continued, she would be finished sooner or later. This blade is called Zanka Fire Tachi. I have already suppressed its power to the minimum, but now it seems that it's still a little dangerous. Dustless muttered to himself. Looking around, the moment he took out Zanka Fire Tachi, the surrounding environment immediately changed. The green trees were evaporated and turned into dead wood. The lake in the distance was bubbling strangely. Due to the high temperature, it was also slowly evaporating. Not only that, all life forms could feel the water in their body quickly disappearing. This B**** still has such a trump card? Métis was shocked. She could feel the changes in her surroundings, and naturally knew that he wasn't lying. All life forms with water in their body could feel the blood in their body disappearing at an accelerated rate. Dustless didn't even need to do anything. He only needed to hold Zanka Fire Tachi for a short while, and the people in this city would all die. Don't look at me with such an incredulous expression. I know you're the kind of person who won't cry until you see the coffin. So if you don't show your corpse a little, you won't turn back and be saved, Dustless said with an extremely serious tone. Turn back and be saved? You're talking as if you're a Buddha who helps the world. Métis's face darkened. She felt the same as Dustless. That wasn't turning back and be saved, it was becoming a demon. However, I can't deny that this guy does indeed have authority that surpasses me. It's not the so-called authority. This seems to be his own strength. Damn it, when did humans become so perverted? Métis slandered in her heart. In terms of strength, she reluctantly acknowledged Dustless. Men are all bad things. Thinking of her painful experience, Métis's compassion instantly disappeared. Her gaze was as sharp as a blade. Don't think that everyone is a heartless person like Zeus, the sky god, Dustless refuted. He couldn't possibly kill everyone with the same brush. Humph, we're all the same. I'm not like Athena, who would throw herself into your arms like an infatuated girl after being tricked by your sweet words, Métis said coldly. In the end, you still want to force me to make a move, Dustless sighed softly. The gentleness in his eyes was restrained, and he swung Zanka Fire Tachi with a biting cold slash. Zanka Fire Tachi, north, ashes of heaven and earth. A huge blade appeared at the tip of the blade. Métis, who sensed the danger, didn't want to give up. He summoned a large number of pythons to resist, but everything that came into contact with the blade instantly turned into ashes. Chapter 1485. Métis panicked and realized the danger of the blade aura. Her heart skipped a beat, and her blood flowed faster. Even her breathing became more and more difficult. Damn pervert! Métis cussed and decisively took a detour. Even though she felt a little aggrieved, what was a moment of humiliation compared to her life? Besides, she was just looking for a better and more suitable opportunity to take revenge on Dustless. Aren't you a god? Stepping on the void, Dustless chased while asking, if you keep dodging let alone defeating me, you won't even be able to touch my body. Now, you're like a mouse, hiding from place to place. Hearing that, Métis was furious. She raised her hands and feet, and black light surged. Roar, roar, roar. In an instant, countless giant pythons appeared, all of them opening their fangs and biting at Dustless. Their several 100-meter-long bodies made people feel despair when they moved. It's useless. Shaking his head slightly, Dustless faced it calmly. A large amount of golden flames flowed out of his body and quickly spread, covering his entire body in the blink of an eye. Zen Fire Tachi West, Broken Sun Prison Garment. The golden flames covered Dustless's entire body. The light was extremely dazzling, and the water in the atmosphere evaporated rapidly, giving people the illusion that he was advancing with the sun and was unstoppable. Roar, roar, roar. The thick black python that approached Dustless roared again. It was different from the valiant and arrogant cry just now. This time, it was filled with endless sorrow. Before it came into contact with Dustless's body, the broken sun prison garment emitted flames of more than 15 million degrees that evaporated everything. Damn it! How can I fight like this? Seeing that, the corner of Métis's mouth twitched violently. A sense of sorrow spread throughout her body. She had a splitting headache, and she couldn't help but exclaim in her heart, where did this guy come from? The temperature of 15 million degrees Celsius was enough to crush everything. Any attack would be reduced to ashes under this terrifying temperature. Métis calmed herself down and counted the moves Dustless had used so far. She couldn't help but feel conflicted. Even the god of disobedience didn't seem to have as many abilities as he did. Including all things in the world, There were too many to count. He often gave people the misconception that there was nothing he couldn't do. Right, let me see what makes you different from the rest. She narrowed her eyes. Since Métis had devoured Athena, he could naturally use her abilities as well. Now the two of them were one. In fact, the current Métis was even stronger than Athena. The most intelligent goddess of wisdom, Métis Athena, had the ability to see through the other party's personality and divine power. Therefore, everything about Dustless in the past was exposed in front of Mortis. You will regret it, Dustless said as if he had sensed Athena's intention. It has to be said that Mortis's ability is quite good. Just like Dustless's Rinnegan can extract other people's memories, this ability has the same effect. A few seconds later, everything about Dustless in the past appeared in Mortis's eyes. Under normal circumstances, knowing the enemy's trump card can reach the state of knowing oneself and the enemy, but there are no absolutes, and there are always exceptions. Dustless is an exception. After knowing Dustless's past, she thought that she would be happy. After all, it was very likely that she would find Dustless's unknown weakness. However, with a long face, Métis quickly realized that he was gravely mistaken. Yo! After a while, Dustless greeted her with a chuckle, touched his chin, and asked expectantly, Have you found my weakness? How could you have such an incredible experience? Are you kidding me? Mortis regretted it. She had hoped to find Dustless's weakness and gain some advantages. Who would have thought that after seeing through everything about Dustless, she would become more desperate and shocked. The more you know, the more unlucky you are. The weirdo in front of her, who always had a cynical smile at the corner of his mouth, was a perverted existence that was enough to make her jaw drop. Compared to the so-called god, he was even worse. In short, Mortis's high fighting spirit was hit hard, and she fell from the clouds to the deep sea, and her heart was filled with an indescribable sense of powerlessness. Immortal body, eternal and infinite energy, eyes that can create and destroy the world, weapons that can destroy the world, and the experience of killing countless gods and... Mortis was stunned. She didn't see any hope, but her heart was full of despair. For a long time as a god of the Trinity, she felt very proud, but Dustless's abilities were summed up. Although there was no so-called godhood, it was not an exaggeration to say that he was an omnipotent god. It seemed that there was nothing he didn't know or didn't understand. Do you feel despair? Dustless said very unscrupulously, with a sloppy expression on his face. As you see, I really don't belong to this world. As for strength, Dustless scratched his head. How many years had it been since he met a competent opponent? But this is good too. Knowing my origin, do you still intend to fight against me? Dustless asked with interest. You should know that no matter how hard you work and encourage yourself, you are no match for me. The gap between us is too big. A baby in swaddling clothes is just a happy agent to adjust the boring life of a towering giant. Hearing this, Mortis was speechless. This time, she didn't fight back like before, but calmed down. It couldn't be helped. This was the truth. Do I really have to be his servant like Athena? Mortis gritted her teeth unwillingly. At this moment, the situation was stronger than her, and she had no choice but to bow down. She didn't have the strength to shake Dustless at the moment, and it seemed that she could only follow the arrangement. Chapter 1486. A sense of helplessness welled up in Mortis' heart. She was physically and mentally exhausted. She gritted her teeth and locked onto Dustless. Changing sides at the last minute? She was naturally unwilling. As a god, it was a great humiliation to be Dustless's servant. She would definitely be disgraced in the future. Especially when she saw Dustless's oily eyes, Mortis felt a chill run down her spine. Combined with the evil smile on his face, it was hard for her not to think wrongly. I want to perish together with you. Half a day later, Mortis gave a ridiculous answer. Your bravery is commendable, but with all due respect, can you do it? Dustless's voice was very soft, but there was a shadow that was hard to get rid of. When it landed on Mortis' ears, it was as heavy as 1,000 pounds. The idea of perishing together was very good, but the key question was, could she do it? Mortis already knew that Dustless had a resurrection ability that was not inferior to his. No matter what kind of injury he suffered, he would recover. Other than that,
There was another ability that would recover no matter what kind of physical attack he received: elemental transformation. No matter how she calculated, the scale of victory was one-sided. Mortis was a god, and her opponent was not easy to deal with. He had an advantage over Mortis in all aspects.
Is there no other way?
Mortis asked speechlessly. Reality is so cruel, Dustless replied with a smile. His voice was light and full of confidence. Mortis frowned and snorted.
How can it be so easy?
Even if I die, I will skin you alive. At most, we will all die together. Your mouth is quite vicious, and your eyes are not bad either. Wu Chen pondered as she sized up Mortis. Her plain eyes were somewhat surprised. She didn't seem to have any deep hatred with Mortis. This guy's resentful expression made people feel pain in the ass. You know that you have no chance of winning, but you still want to continue. What a boring woman. Dustless sighed and put on an expression as if he was the savior of the world. How about this? Let's play a game. If you can force me to retreat within 3 moves, you win. How about that?
What can I get?
Métis asked. Compared to this kind of boring game, she was more interested in the spoils of war. If you win, you can do whatever you want with me, Dustless said bluntly. But if you lose, you have to be my servant.
Keek keek.
When he said the best, it was a sinister laugh that made people feel uneasy. This bastard. Métis's eyes were spewing fire. Dustless's gaze made her extremely unhappy. It was as if she was a fish waiting to be slaughtered. Dustless, on the other hand, was sharpening his blade. You don't dare to bet? Dustless sneered. The so-called god is nothing more than this. You think I'm afraid of you? In the end, Mortis gritted his teeth and agreed. No problem. Don't be too embarrassed if you lose. However, there's a condition. You can't use that move that makes you immune to physical attacks. If he couldn't do it, then it was better to admit defeat as soon as possible. If he couldn't even hit him, how could he force Dustless to retreat? No problem. Dustless's eyes flashed. He shouldn't have agreed to Mortis's condition. There were too many tricks that he could use to cheat. Then, let's begin. The moment his voice fell, Mortis launched a biting cold attack. She waved her deadly sickle and attacked. A dark red luster appeared. Swish! 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 A huge roar broke the eardrums of humans. The sharp sound of dawn was like the cry of a demon. Mortis's full attack was no joke. Ka! 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 The space along the way was distorted. In the end, it couldn't withstand the powerful force and exploded. What a ruthless heart! Dustless secretly frowned. He, who was at the peak of his strength, could naturally see the steps of this move. From Mortis's pale face, he could see that it was quite strenuous for him. Good move. It's a good move, but it's a pity. Shaking his head slightly, Dustless displayed his shamelessness to the extreme. His black eyes began to change rapidly and were replaced by a dark red halo. Divine might. Ripples appeared in the void in front of him. Then, there was a large-scale distortion. In the center where the density was the highest, a small black hole could be clearly seen. It was expanding at a rapid speed. In the blink of an eye, a huge black hole appeared. The gravitational force that could disintegrate the whole world shot out, changing the trajectory of the fighter and forcefully pulling it over. Not good. Seeing such a scene, Mortis cursed. She already understood what Dustless was planning. Plop! Like a stone falling into the sea, the domineering slash turned into ashes and was forcefully sucked into the black hole. There was no movement at all. Miss Mortis, this first move is over. Ignoring Mortis's pale face, Dustless maintained his silence. What he was best at was actually not elemental transformation. To put it bluntly, this was just a move that allowed him to passively take a beating. And Mortis had misunderstood a problem from the beginning to the end. Compared to defense, Dustless was better at attacking with all his strength. So cold. Suddenly, Dustless felt a chill all over his body. Looking over, Mortis's beautiful eyes were filled with light as she locked onto Dustless. She could not wait to swallow him alive. This guy was really too much of an eyesore and did not know the rules. You're looking at me so fiercely. Don't tell me you want me to fight you with my eyes closed? Dustless did not know whether to laugh or cry. What's wrong with that?
Ocular techniques are also cheating. Forbidden.
Mortis's tone was as if this was how it should be. Suddenly, she felt that Dustless's ocular technique was even more powerful than elemental transformation.
A hopeless woman. Dustless was speechless. He could not be bothered to talk nonsense with Mortis. It was time for this farce to end. Chapter 1487. Métis was helpless. She realized that she was miserable and weak. She could only be slaughtered by Dustless. There was nothing she could do. She was powerless to deal with the countless trump cards that he had. Seeing that Métis was motionless, Dustless's figure flashed and appeared behind Métis. If you don't move, then I'll take the initiative. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The sharp edge of the tragic fire Tachi swept out. Don't underestimate me. Although Métis was not as good as Dustless, she was still a real god. She immediately controlled the black scythe to strike back. Boom boom boom. A huge roar spread from the sky. A visible energy ripple evaporated the surrounding area for thousands of meters. The remaining oxygen in the endless atmosphere was all evaporated and annihilated by the invincible heat of the tragic fire Tachi. The surrounding area was filled with suffocating danger. This damned monster. The heavens must be blind to let such a person live. What a failure. Métis complained in her heart. She dealt with Dustless with all her strength, but she was still almost sent flying by the terrifying force. Now, even if she could barely withstand Dustless's attack, due to the temperature of the tragic fire Tachi, her weapon was peeling off layer by layer. Not only the weapon, but the entire world seemed to be in a huge steamer basket. Everything in the world began to evaporate and collapse. An unprecedented sense of crisis filled the air. I've always been wrong. Kanejima stared blankly at the two people in the sky. He had always thought that the one who would destroy Japan was the god of disobedience. Now, he suddenly realized that he was very wrong. Other than the god of disobedience, there was another person who could easily destroy Japan. He was even more dangerous than the god of disobedience, and he had already begun to do so. The god slayer. Dustless. Mother Kerr, I invited you here to protect Japan, not to destroy it. Our Japan can't withstand such violence. Bastard. However, only Kanejima heard these words. He could not muster up the courage to say such arrogant words to Dustless. You still have one last chance, Miss Métis. Dustless had an unconcealable smile on his face. He had already made up his mind to test Mortis after this duel. As for servants, other services were also within the scope of this rule. Hearing this, the corner of Mortis's mouth twitched. He regretted agreeing to Dustless's conditions. Who was she? Métis. He also had a special identity that stood out from the masses. Although Métis had been devoured by Zeus, she was undoubtedly his first wife. From Dustless's crazy eyes, Métis caught a different meaning. This guy wants me so much. Could it be that he wants to make Zeus a cuckold? When this unbelievable thought appeared in her mind, Métis was also shocked. But for some reason, she felt the pleasure of taking revenge on Zeus. Compared to the sky that devoured Zeus, Métis preferred this more extreme method of revenge. If Zeus knew that he had been cuckolded, he might be angered half to death. Moreover, looking at it carefully, Dustless was stronger than Zeus in all aspects. First of all, in terms of strength, Dustless, who had destroyed several worlds in succession, was definitely not weaker than Zeus. Furthermore, his appearance was completely superior to that rotten old man. Thinking of this, Métis's eyes slowly changed. Her eyes were like spring water as she looked at Dustless shyly. Damn it! How could I have such dirty thoughts? I'm a god. Although this guy is also equivalent to a god, I definitely can't have an affair with him. Shaking her head hard, Métis was shocked by her own thoughts. However, in such a short period of time, Mortis had already lost everything. Immortal art, bright god gate. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Suddenly, a sharp sound of something breaking through the air came from the depths of the sky. Gulp! Métis instantly shivered and looked up instinctively. She saw countless mahogany falling from the sky. There were so many of them that it was dazzling. I can't get hit. Métis's eyes were filled with fear. She could only admit defeat when facing a pervert like Dustless. Therefore, she abandoned her position without any principles and turned to run. How fast can you be? Can you outrun light? The next second after Métis turned to run, Dustless blocked her path. Not only that, but she was also faced with a snake-like chain. Heaven lock. The chains looked harmless, but Métis's face turned pale. She had learned from Athena that these chains were not ordinary goods. Once caught by it, she would never be able to escape Dustless's nightmares. Get out of my way. Forced to a dead end, Métis's ferocious nature was unleashed. She waved her sickle and slashed forward. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The purplish-black demonic light pounced toward Heaven, trying to defeat him. Dream on. Dustless was indifferent. However, his calm eyes were once again filled with turbulent waves. Divine might. Ka-ka-ka. The void suddenly cracked, and a black hole gradually enlarged, expanding its territory like a whale swallowing a whale. Gulp. Métis's slash that gave her hope sank into the dark divine might and stopped moving. Ouch! Métis exclaimed. She suddenly felt some pain on her wrist. She looked over instinctively and saw that it was the heaven lock that had locked her. Damn it! Métis cursed. She struggled with all her might, but it was useless. She couldn't break free from the heaven lock at all. Moreover, the mahogany in the void came crashing down. Boom boom boom. Métis was forcefully suppressed. Together with the heaven lock, she was smashed to the ground. The ground kept shaking for a minute before stopping. Chapter 1488. The situation changed in an instant. The arrogant Métis was suppressed, and the mahogany that filled the sky occupied the ground. The land within a 1-kilometer radius was affected and turned into a barren, scorched land. The land within a 10-kilometer radius was not much better. It was a mess like a natural disaster, and shocking cracks appeared. Yo 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 yo! An extremely smug laughter descended from the sky, and then the sky was suddenly covered. Métis, who was suppressed by the divine spell, Bright God Gate, raised her head instinctively. Dustless stood in front of her with an overbearing aura. Even the sky was dim due to his imposing figure. Miss Métis. Grabbing Métis' chin, Dustless touched it twice. It was smooth and soft to the touch, like silk. Glaring at Dustless, Métis warned fiercely. Take your claws away, or I'll bite your hand off. Her eyeballs were about to fall out. Even though she was Dustless's captive, she did not maintain the attitude of a goddess. She was domineering, full of dignity, and disdained to be associated with mortals. However, she did not know that this arrogant look would instead arouse Dustless's interest. Bite me! Dustless put his hand next to Métis' mouth and said with a smile. Métis' eyes widened, and her ferocious nature erupted. She instinctively thought that Dustless was looking down on her. Just when she opened her mouth to defend her dignity as a goddess, Dustless words forced her to close her mouth. If you're a dog that likes to bite people, feel free to do so. Dustless shook the thumb of his right hand and smiled. You're the one. Métis retracted her gaze. You're really stubborn. A mischievous look flashed across Dustless's brows. Just when he was about to teach Métis a lesson, he suddenly felt a gust of wind behind him. Ripples spread out in the void, and the air was filled with a destructive aura. Realizing the danger, he decisively used a counterattack. Binding Dao, 81, Sky Shattering. A barrier as thin as a cicada's wing formed in the blue void. Ka-ka-ka. However, this air wave that came out of nowhere was too terrifying and powerful. The skybreaker that had just appeared did not last for long, and its surface was covered with cracks like a spider web. Ha 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 ha, your enemy is here. Mortis laughed heartily as he stared at Dustless, trying to find a hint of depression on his face. The one who should be worried is you, Métis. Dustless glanced at her and said calmly. My enemies are only two kinds of people. One is the god of disobedience, and the other is the god of disobedience. I don't think I need to tell you what it is. Hearing this, Mortis's smile changed slightly, and his expression turned gloomy. Other than the god of disobedience, only the god of disobedience could oppose a god-slayer of the same level. Dustless would capture a god-slayer as a servant out of boredom, but the other god-slayers had no interest in that. I agree to be your servant. In the face of life and death, Mortis decisively abandoned his position. Idiot! Do you really think it's a good thing to take me in as a servant?
That means endless trouble. Mortis sneered in his heart. Other than a weirdo like Dustless, to a god slayer, the god of disobedience was a delicious cake. No matter which god slayer met the god of disobedience, the two would fight. The god of disobedience was nourishment for the god slayer. Just as Mortis was hoping that Dustless and this mysterious god slayer would fight, there was a fluctuation in the sky, and then a sudden sentence made Mortis vomit blood.
TSK.
As expected of my disciple, you actually tamed the god of disobedience as a servant. The sound of nature was like an oriole flying out of the valley, gentle and melodious.
This is simply... Mortis gritted his teeth so hard that they almost broke. He hoped that Dustless and the god slayer would fight. Now, he had become the golden signboard for Dustless to make a name for himself. Mortis's eyes rolled back, and he fainted from anger. Long time no see.
Dustless turned and revealed a gentle smile. The person in front of him was devastatingly beautiful. She was wearing a white traditional Chinese dress, and her delicate face was as exquisite as jade. There was no flaw to be found.
When you see Master, you must use honorifics.
The heavenly beauty glared at Dustless and immediately frowned. The god of disobedience is the cornerstone for the god slayer to become stronger.
It is a little extravagant to take her as a servant. It is a waste of her authority.
Your personality hasn't changed at all.
You are still as narcissistic as before, Dustless muttered. This person was sect leader Luo Hao.
Humph. This is not narcissism.
I am your master.
As an existence at the top of the martial artist pyramid, Luo Hao's ears were sharp. She heard Dustless's ridicule clearly, and she immediately glared at him.
Killing Mortis is actually a loss. Taming her is worth it. Dustless smiled.
Martial arts could drive enemies away, and he could even sleep with her. She was simply a perfect lover bestowed by the heavens.
Why are you looking for me? Dustless asked.
Luo Hao lived in seclusion. Unless there was something, she would never leave Mount Lu.
You are too unreasonable. I am your master, after all.
It is only right for me to visit my obedient disciple. Luo Hao had an expression of, I am here to visit you. Hearing this, Dustless shook his head. He would not fall for this, and Luo Hao would not be so bored.
Could it be that god of disobedience Monkey King?
Suddenly thinking of the Monkey King of disobedience who was imprisoned in the Western Heaven Palace, Dustless's eyes flashed with understanding.
However, this might be a good opportunity.
I can use this opportunity to get rid of all the god slayers in the world.
Those self-righteous people are too troublesome.
Dustless's eyes flashed with a ferocious light. In an instant, he became the old him. The god slayers were also competitors. For example, Luo Hao and Marquis Warban were enemies who did not see eye to eye. Getting rid of one was one less enemy.
Chapter 1489.
The Monkey King of Disobedience was not an ordinary god of disobedience. Apart from his own strength, there were 3 gods of disobedience with his 2 junior brothers. When the time came, they would definitely attract the attention of the other god slayers. When the god slayers were attracted, Dustless could take the opportunity to get rid of them. The world is only so big. I alone am not enough to deal with it. I alone am enough for the god slayers. The others should be eliminated. With a cold light in his eyes, Dustless had a pretty good plan in mind. The purpose of my visit this time is the Monkey King, who is suppressed in the Western Heaven Palace. If I leave him alone after knowing his existence, it will damage my reputation.
Grand Sect Master Luo said coldly.
As the god of disobedience of our country, it is a great shame to play with a group of Japanese people.
That's right.
Dustless nodded in agreement. However, unlocking the seal of the monarch ape monkey is indispensable.
There are some things that are indispensable, Luo Hao said worriedly.
Hearing that, Dustless smiled but did not say anything. In fact, any seal or enchantment was a trivial problem for him. The difference in strength could easily tear it apart. However, for the sake of his own plan, Dustless chose to remain silent.
In short, you have to join forces with me.
Luo Hao ordered with a straight face and raised his fist. After that, the authority will be yours.
His meaning was obvious. If you don't listen to me, I will beat you up.
No problem.
Dustless smiled and nodded.
Then he shook his head and said, The authority is easy to talk about.
I don't need it. It doesn't matter if I give it all to you.
Dustless stretched lazily and said in a casual tone, You look really free and easy. However, it's absolutely impossible for you to refuse your master's things.
You have to take what I give you.
I, Luo Hao, will not order people around without a reward, even if you are my disciple.
Luo Hao said bitterly. This guy.
Dustless bitterly smiled. Hearing Luo Hao call him a disciple, it was extremely jarring. Back then, he had only taken Luo Hao as his master because he wanted to know more about the situation of this world. He didn't expect this guy to get addicted to calling himself disciple.
I have an idea of how to unlock Monarch Ape. I will inform you when the plan is implemented.
Luo Hao was a straightforward person.
In the end, he added, our alliance may cause some people to be wary. You have to be careful. Just let nature take its course. If anyone comes looking for trouble, just let Fist teach them a lesson, Dustless said with a shrug. Then, Luo Hao's figure gradually faded away. 10 days later, on the Pacific Ocean, a luxurious cruise ship was slowly moving forward.
Where did you two get the money? Dustless's astonished voice rang out from inside the luxurious cruise ship.
Let me tell you too, robbery is illegal.
Dustless stared sternly at the two girls in front of him. The two girls looked almost identical. One was Athena and the other was her mother, Métis.
Brother Chen is right. This is a very serious issue. You two must not rob, Shizuka Kusanagi said beside Dustless. Just as she was about to continue lecturing Athena and Métis, a voice stopped her. Come here quickly, Shizuka. There's a swimming pool on this cruise ship. It was Wanli Gu Yoli's voice. Hearing that, Kusanagi Shizuka's eyes lit up. Then, she ran over without stopping. Only Dustless, Athena, and Mortis were left behind.
You two idiots. Bring me along the next time you rob someone, idiots.
Dustless's expression changed immediately. He pointed at the two girls and scolded. Besides, there are too many targets on this cruise ship. Next time, we will rob people of gold and treasures. Do you understand? Métis and Athena stared at Dustless speechlessly. Weren't you the one who said that we are going for a vacation? Métis said indignantly. After a few days, she was completely terrified. She even agreed to become Dustless's servant.
You're right, Athena nodded in agreement.
I was.
Dustless was at a loss for words. This was the condition that he proposed. Staying in Shizuka's house all day long would be a waste of time.
Forget it. I'll only do it this once. Don't do it again.
Wu Chen was also too lazy to talk nonsense with the two of them. This pair of mother and daughter definitely grew up eating fodder. Sometimes, their IQ was frighteningly high, but when they encountered some small problems, they just couldn't turn the corner.
Athena, you can leave first.
I have something to talk to Métis about, Dustless said with a serious face. However, there was a hint of unnaturalness in his eyes.
You too. Athena frowned.
She stared at the two for a few seconds before nodding and walking out of the cabin. She finally left. Dustless heaved a sigh of relief.
He thought that Athena would ask for more details. He didn't expect her to be so easy to deal with.
Don't tell me you want to. Métis's face was slightly red. Her delicate face was covered with a layer of redness.
She had already guessed Wu Chen's motive.
At that moment, her entire body involuntarily trembled. Boom, boom, boom. Just as he was about to tear off Métis's clothes, an untimely vibration and a dull thud filled the air.
The cruise ship that was sailing smoothly suddenly shook violently.
A fight of this scale.
Are they disobedient gods? Dustless frowned.
A murderous aura flashed in his eyes. It was fine that he was attacked for no reason, but he was especially angry that he was disturbed when he was doing something like this.
Let's go out and take a look.
Métis, who had escaped from the devil's hand, heaved a sigh of relief. Dustless's gloomy expression was ignored by her.
Chapter 1490. On the deck, the blue sky was filled with endless waves. The salty sea breeze blew in from afar, making one feel relaxed and happy. Boom, boom, boom.
Thick water pillars kept splashing, and exaggerated waves surged. The luxurious oil tanker that Dustless and the others were on was almost overturned by the waves. That's the god of disobedience? In the distant sky, a monster that was dozens of meters long was rolling violently. She only needed to sway slightly, and violent storms and waves would roll up on the surface of the sea. An exaggerated wave rushed straight toward them.
Everyone, be careful.
Grab the railing to prevent the impact.
Erica and Liliana reminded loudly, indicating for everyone to grab something fixed. Ah! How disrespectful.
It's rare for me to go out, and I can't believe I'm encountering such terrible weather.
A dissatisfied snort was heard. Looking toward the source, Dustless and Mortis walked out of the cabin. A huge wave that was dozens of meters tall came into view.
Ka, ka, ka.
High-density flashes of light flowed from the tip of his thumb, crackling like thunder. Furthermore, due to its overwhelming power, even the void appeared to be in a distorted state. Another move that I've never seen before. Mortis, Athena, Erica, and Liliana looked at each other. They could see the helplessness in each other's eyes. Dustless could come up with a different move every time.
Wang Su's flash.
With a flick of his finger, a blue light shot out.
Its speed was instantaneous.
The moment it shot out, it approached the huge wave without limit. Boom, boom, boom. Violent explosions swept out. The violent impact flattened the huge wave that was several meters tall. The sky that had been darkened by the seawater also regained its brightness. Mortis, Athena, Erica, and Liliana. The four of you come with me. I'd like to see who's so disrespectful. It's rare for us to go out on a vacation, yet you're so disrespectful. Dustless completely ignored the existence of gravity. His body floated up, and so did Erica and the other three girls.
King as your night eye. No need.
Waving his hand, Dustless interrupted Hui Na from the Qingqiu courtyard. He said softly, Jinghua and Yoli are not fit to fight. You'll protect them for now. I understand, King. Hui Na from the Qingqiu courtyard nodded gently. Damn it. This time, I must get rid of you, the giant snake roared. The serpent, whose body was covered in scales, roared. Her huge serpent head opened and closed, revealing a dense row of fangs. The cold glint of her fangs could even pierce through steel. Just looking at such a huge monster would make people tremble in fear, not to mention fighting it. This monster was called the god ancestor Angela. However, at this moment, she wasn't in a good condition. Her thick snake body was covered in wounds and blood. She looked terrified. Moreover, ancestor god Angela's breathing was chaotic. She was gasping for breath. It was hard to imagine what kind of existence could defeat Angela with her. You've been reduced to such a miserable state, yet you're still so stubborn. It's comparable to your thick scales. A male voice said. His tone sounded very noble. This person was wearing a black tuxedo, a mask on his face, and a gun in his hand. He was very calm. Facing the giant body of the god ancestor Angela, he was very calm. She was the American god slayer, John Pluto Smith. Then I'll die with you. You won't be able to escape unscathed. A strange smile appeared on the snake head. The god ancestor Angela's smile was very crazy and ferocious. With just you. John Pluto Smith curled his lips in disdain. Although he didn't directly mock her, anyone could hear the deep disdain in his tone. This was naked and direct disdain.
Humph, I hope you can continue to be so carefree later.
The god ancestor Angela cursed fiercely. You won't even have a corpse left. It's useless to talk. Just come at me.
John Pluto Smith waved his hand and said calmly. Ah. Suddenly, a shrill scream came from the mouth of the god ancestor Angela. An indescribable sense of danger suddenly descended.
However, the surroundings were as quiet as still water. There was no change. Only the god ancestor Angela's body expanded. Could it be that this guy wants to? John Pluto Smith's expression didn't change, but his tone changed. She smelled a strong sense of danger. An inexplicable voice in her heart warned her to be careful. She couldn't help but take a few steps back and calmly looked at the god ancestor Angela. Want to run? No way. You still.
The god ancestor Angela laughed crazily. The masked Superman over there, as well as this scary snake, stop right now.
This is my territory. Stop fighting immediately.
Before he finished speaking, the god ancestor Angela was interrupted by an unexpected voice. John Plateau Smith and the god ancestor Angela were both stunned. They turned their heads and saw 5 tiny shadows rushing over.
Masked Superman?
The corner of John Plateau Smith's mouth twitched. He retorted angrily, "Don't call me by such a vulgar name. My name is John Plateau Smith. If I say you're a masked Superman, then you're a masked Superman. Don't quibble." Dustless, who was rushing over, curled his lips. He was holding a gun and wearing a mask that looked like Ultraman. If he wasn't a masked Superman, then what was he? Of course, Dustless's gaze fell on the god ancestor Angela. Wasn't this guy the tool that Luo Hao said needed to unlock one of the seals of the ape god?
Chapter 1491. John Plateau Smith frowned.
Seeing Dustless staring at Angela, she felt like she was being looked down upon, or even ignored. After giving Dustless a fierce glare, her eyes fell on Dustless's followers. These people don't seem to be ordinary. The blonde and silver-haired girls are not simple. Especially the 2 girls who look almost the same. They are even weirder. John Plateau Smith's eyes darkened. If someone could see her face clearly under the mask, they would find a delicate face. As well as that cautious expression on his face. He should be an East Asian without a doubt. But who is this guy? He's not Luo Hao. After staring at Dustless for a while, John Plateau Smith frowned and said. His eyes were faintly fixed on Métis and Athena. He knew that there was something wrong with these 2 little girls. Especially the little girl in the black coat, Métis. She gave John Plateau Smith a very dangerous and evil feeling. "Who are you?" God ancestor Angela asked in a deep voice. "My lord, there shouldn't be any grudges between us. If you really want to take revenge." The snake eyes glanced at John Plateau Smith cunningly. Angela pointed at her and said, "Please go find that cunning god slayer."
Bah! Upon hearing this, John Plateau Smith's face twitched.
Although she was not afraid of Dustless and the others, she could not allow herself to be used as a tool by her mortal enemy, Angela.
"Don't talk nonsense.
I don't know him, and there is no grudge between us."
John Plateau Smith snapped. Her tone was a little angry. "I'm not interested in where you 2 came from or why you are fighting. In short, there are only 2 choices in front of you."
Dustless completely ignored the 2's verbal battle and said, "Fighting in my territory is an unforgivable crime. Either you submit to me, or I'll send you to hell for free." After these words, the world fell silent for a few seconds. The sound of wind and water stopped, and time seemed to stop. Everyone looked at Dustless in a daze. Erica, Liliana, Métis, and Athena were all in a daze, not to mention John Plateau Smith and Angela.
"Am I dreaming?"
After about a minute, John Plateau Smith muttered to herself. She pinched her right hand, and the intense pain made her grit her teeth.
"Have you gone crazy? Do you know who I am?"
"I'm John Plateau Smith, the God Slayer from America, and that guy is Angela, the boss of the Lord of the Flies.
Remember who you are talking to before you sleep talk," John Plateau Smith shouted.
He looked at Dustless with an unfriendly gaze. Clear baleful chi had already surfaced in his eyes. If it weren't for the fact that Wu Chen was outnumbered and had a mysterious background, he would have already charged over. And Angela was also full of murderous intent. She said coldly, "I want to tell you that this is the Pacific Ocean, the most vast ocean in the world. It doesn't belong to anyone. What you 2 are saying is bullshit." Hearing this, Dustless laughed and said overbearingly, "My interests and hobbies are different from others. The more dangerous something is, the more I like it. The more others are afraid of something, the more I like it. Even the so-called Godslayer is no exception. If I say the Pacific Ocean is mine, it is mine."
"So arrogant?"
John Plateau Smith and Angela looked at each other. They could see the anger in each other's eyes. They had always been unreasonable, but this time, they were looked down upon.
"You think you are Dustless? You kill the God Slayer because you don't like him?"
John Plateau Smith sneered coldly. The story of Marquis Warban being killed by Dustless had already spread throughout the world.
Dustless?
Hearing this, Dustless's face was as strange as it could be. Not only that, but Athena and the others were also the same. They all looked at John Pluto Smith speechlessly. Since you know this name, don't you know that his original body is right in front of you?
Is there something wrong?
John Pluto Smith's mouth twitched. He found that Dustless and the other four were looking at him like he was an idiot. He was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. As the Demon King, when had he ever been provoked like this? All humans were respectful when they saw him.
Why?
Because he was the legendary Demon King, the God Slayer who could shatter heaven and earth with a flick of his finger. Now, this group of people was looking at him like he was an idiot.
How dare they? Don't you think I look familiar? Or, it seems familiar.
Rubbing his nose awkwardly, Wu Chen asked with a speechless expression. Could it be that you are? Angela also noticed the strange faces of Erica and the others. He stared at Dustless for a few seconds, and a vague figure suddenly appeared in his mind. He blinked, and the vague figure became clearer and clearer. Angela's face changed and he said hoarsely, "It can't be wrong.
He is Dustless, the new Demon King who was recently born.
I once sent my subordinates to investigate him in detail.
No wonder my eyelids were twitching today.
It was because I met this jinx." Angela's face was full of bad luck, and John Pluto Smith was not much better.
Am I famous?
Touching his chin, Dustless was quite surprised by the intense reaction of the two.
Chapter 1492.
In the vast Pacific Ocean, there was an island that stood out. The island was called Itagami Island. It was a man-made island made of resin, metal, and organic matter. It floated in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It was a city where humans and monsters coexisted.
Seriously.
In the secluded park, a young man with delicate features sighed and looked up at the sky. His bright eyes were dim at the moment, as if covered by a layer of mist, very blurred. At least let me prepare before sending me to this world. Before Dustless could ask about transmigration, Linger, the incarnation of the system consciousness, impatiently threw him into this unfamiliar world.
Of course, it wasn't too unfamiliar. At least Dustless knew a thing or two about it. Itagami Island? Isn't this Akatsuki City's territory?
Dustless looked around and thought to himself, but that kid doesn't seem to be in power yet. The so-called Akatsuki Empire hasn't been born yet.
Grumble.
Dustless heard a sound that made his balls ache.
His stomach grumbled. He hadn't eaten for an entire day.
The worst part was that he didn't have a single cent in his pocket.
Let's find something to eat first.
Dustless got up and stretched his body. Just as he was about to leave, a series of hurried footsteps came from afar. A few black figures swarmed over.
Brat, give me your money.
The blond young man with an arrogant expression roared. You're really bold, aren't you? You dare to come out alone, especially in such a deserted place.
Give me your money or I'll beat you to death.
This brat is so fair and beautiful.
He can't be a poor ghost, right?
Don't worry, he's so handsome.
We can sell him off.
Haha. This group of gangsters surrounded Wu Chen so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through.
All of them laughed unscrupulously. In their eyes, Wu Chen was shining gold. Oh right, I forgot my job. How stupid.
Dustless cursed in his heart and immediately shouted at them. I'm in a very bad mood now.
I'm also very hungry.
If you don't want to be beaten up, quickly give me the money. Hearing this, the faces of the few people who were laughing suddenly froze as they looked at Dustless in shock.
Is this guy crazy?
There are 6 of us, and this kid wants to rob us all by himself? The golden-haired young man who spoke before waved his hand and pointed at Dustless. He ordered his subordinates, beat this brat to death and teach him how to behave. As soon as he finished speaking, the golden-haired young man's group of dogs pounced on him.
Light-speed kick.
For the next minute, the sound of punches and kicks did not stop.
Really, you bunch of poor bastards. You don't even have the money to feed yourselves. How are you going to feed your parents? They're all a bunch of scumbags.
Dustless cursed as he walked. His eyes lit up as he rummaged through the wallets of these people. It was estimated that they could only afford a meal together.
Perhaps they would have to sleep on the street again tonight.
As for the group of scum they had met before, they had been beaten to a pulp by Dustless. Coo 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 coo. While counting the money, Dustless's stomach growled again.
Whatever, let's go eat first. Dustless quickened his pace.
Just as he was about to leave the park and look for a restaurant to eat, a familiar figure blocked his path.
Little girl, move aside.
Dustless frowned as he stared at the black-haired girl.
Don't call me little.
The beautiful girl raised her eyebrows and put her hands on her hips. There was an inexplicable sense of majesty about her that made others feel respect for her.
She looks like Natsuki Nangong? No wonder I found her familiar.
Dustless suddenly understood.
The girl was wearing a gothic lowly outfit. She carried an umbrella and a lace fan.
Her delicate appearance and petite figure made Dustless think of only one person, Natsuki Nangong. Consider me unlucky, Dustless muttered to himself.
He chose to take a detour.
Stop right there.
Natsuki Nangong did not intend to let Dustless go. She asked, "Did you hear who made that huge explosion just now?"
Sorry, I don't have time to talk nonsense with you, but...
Dustless thought about his huge appetite.
He knew that the money he robbed was not enough. He took the opportunity to rob her.
If you are willing to treat me to a meal, I don't mind telling you who did it. Natsuki Nangong was stunned. She looked at Dustless with surprise.
Then she said with interest, "You are quite bold.
You dare to bargain with me? We all have one head and two hands. Why wouldn't I dare?" Dustless looked at Natsuki Nangong and asked.
In this world, only the true ancestors stood at the top of the pyramid. Moreover, there were very few of them.
Including Koju, there were only 4 in the modern world.
Dustless was not afraid of encountering a true ancestor.
Forget it. Tell me. Natsuki Nangong handed Dustless a wallet. She did not want to waste her breath. The huge explosion just now was not normal. She only wanted to know who the culprit was. The strength of the explosion was rare. Dustless took the wallet and turned to leave.
He said without thinking, "It's just a small matter."
Don't worry. A few idiots who overestimated their strength tried to rob me. However, they were too weak and I robbed them instead. There is no need to worry. Brat, stop right there. Natsuki Nangong shouted after being stunned. Natsuki Nangong's mouth twitched. Her expression was gloomy.
She cursed inwardly. So you are the culprit.
No wonder I did not find anyone else. How dare you cheat me of my money? Chapter 1493. Nangong Na Yu showed her invincible might. Her tone and temperament were inexplicably majestic, which made Wu Chen stop in his tracks. He turned his head and looked at her in surprise. Is there anything else? Dustless asked. Food is the most important thing to people. Delaying other people's meals is illegal. Then I'll treat you to prison food right now. Nangong Natsuyu glared at Dustless and said impolitely. She grabbed Dustless's right hand and called the Special Regions Police Force. Let go of me. Don't test my patience.
Dustless said coldly with a hint of threat.
Or you'll regret it. You dare to force me? Interesting. Hearing this, Nangong Natsuyu was not afraid. Instead, she was very interested.
She said provocatively, "If you can make me let go of your hand, then I'll let bygones be bygones."
Nangong Natsuyu grabbed Dustless even tighter. This guy's skin is so well maintained? His hand is so slippery. Nangong Natsuyu was surprised. Of course, it was only for a short moment. You forced me to do this.
With a strange smile on his face, Wu Chen opened his mouth and shouted, "Come and see, there's a female hooligan taking liberties with a man from a good family."
She even...
Dustless was about to attack Nangong Natsuyu when his mouth was sealed.
You dare to spread rumors? I'll kill you. Nangong Natsuyu's face darkened. She suppressed the anger of wanting to swallow Dustless alive.
She covered Dustless's mouth with one hand and warned fiercely, "You better not make a big deal out of a small matter."
Whoa. Dustless was not afraid of Nangong Natsuyu. He called out 2 more times.
However, with his mouth sealed, no one could hear clearly what he was saying.
But this was not important. Dustless's lion roar had attracted a lot of people. Hurry up and call the Special Regions Police Force. That little girl is so strong. She can't be a demon, right? Becoming a pervert at such a young age. Sigh, it's such a pity that you're in the prime of your life. 20 to 30 seconds later, a large group of passers-by heard the news. No matter which world it was, no creature could change their nature of gossip. The passers-by all talked about Natsuki Nangong. Dustless's mouth was covered by her hand, and she even grabbed his hand tightly. It was obvious who the victim was. PFFF. Hearing those ear-piercing words, Nangong Na Yu almost spat out a mouthful of blood. She glared at Wu Chen with fire in her eyes, as if she was a scum. Nangong Natue was furious. Today was the most unlucky day of her life. Not only had she been played by Dustless, she had also been cheated of her money. What made her collapse the most was that she had been treated as a pervert and a scumbag. Brat, you win. Nangong Natsuki finally chose to compromise and let go of Dustless's hands. Hee. You said you would let bygones be bygones. Don't go back on your words, young girl. Dustless showed a sly smile. Looking at Nangong Natsuki's red face, he swaggered away. What's your name? A cold voice came from behind him. My name is Dustless. Dustless said without turning his head. He didn't need to turn around to know it was Nangong Natsuki. Boom boom boom. A violent explosion suddenly swept across the area. A powerful shockwave came from the front, shattering all the windows. Due to the power of the shockwave, even the cars were sent flying. What is that? Dustless raised his eyebrows. He looked up and saw a glowing horse standing in the middle of the road. It was emitting a powerful aura. The shockwave just now came from it. It looks like a familiar beast. Dustless narrowed his eyes and muttered to himself. Summoning a familiar beast in public and causing such a big commotion, he will definitely be arrested and interrogated. Not to mention, he has a magician with him, Nangong Natsuki, who is also an instructor of the Special Regions Police Force. More and more people are provoking me today. Nangong Natsuki's tone was cold. She walked past Dustless and headed straight for the scene. It seems like she really didn't want to pursue Dustless. Brat, you're lucky this time. Don't let me see you again. Due to the urgency of the situation, Nangong Natsuki had to ignore Dustless for now. Leaving the familiar beast alone would cause more damage and the loss would be greater than facing Dustless alone. There was a voice in Nangong Natsuki's mind telling her that she will meet Dustless again one day. We will definitely meet again. Dustless shrugged and shook his head helplessly. This is Itagami Island. Nangong Natsuki is like a local snake. If he doesn't want to meet her, he will have to leave the island. Akatsuki Koju's Akatsuki Empire hasn't been born yet, so it's better to never come out. In order to not starve to death, I'll just call it Akatsuki Empire from now on. Wu Chen smiled and muttered to himself. At the same time, he followed Nangong Na Yu. She looks familiar. The girl in the school uniform was holding a silver spear. She looked majestic, her watery eyes were bright, and combined with her cute face, it made people's eyes light up. In a trance, Wu Chen thought of a familiar figure. So it's Yukaina Kimura. Then the silver-haired boy next to her is Akatsuki Koju? Due to the distance, Dustless's vision was very blurry. He had to use the Tensigen to observe the surroundings. It's Akatsuki Koju and Yukaina Kimura. Seeing this, Wu Chen laughed secretly. Wind blew under his feet, and his pace was faster. He turned into a gust of wind and floated to the center of the incident. Chapter 1494. This guy still dares to follow me? Does he want to die? Humph. But it's good that he followed me. How dare he speak ill of me? Nangong Na Yu had been secretly observing Dustless's movements. This guy was extremely hateful. His ability to trick people was extremely vicious. It made people clench their teeth. This was the first time she was treated as a female pervert. She felt extremely aggrieved, and there was a ball of fire in her chest that she had to vent. It was a good time to vent on this idiot who was causing trouble. The street released its own curly beasts. According to the Sanctuary Treaty, it is only right to execute the two of you on the spot. The girl waved her silver spear. Every word she said was like a gem. Her voice was bone-chilling as if she really wanted to kill them. It seems that my worries were unnecessary.
In the distance, the shifty-eyed young man said in surprise. This girl is so strong?
He actually managed to beat those two demons into a retreat. This person had a head of silver hair and was wearing a hat. He looked like a rat that could not be exposed to the light. He looked rather wretched. He was one of the strongest vampires in the world, the fourth true ancestor, Koju. But there is no need to kill them. Koju was overflowing with love. He felt that the girl was going too far with her silver spear. After some hesitation, he decided to charge forward. It seemed that he wanted to stop the girl's killing intent. Why is this guy a vampire so kind? Dustless was speechless at Koju's meddlesome behavior. Most vampires were not good people. Most of them needed to drink blood. Of course, only a special existence like Koju could be considered a weirdo. Forget it. There is no chance for me to make a move now. I will take advantage of this opportunity to eat and dash. Dustless's eyes glowed. There was no one in the shops. Most people had run away when the two demons attacked. Many restaurants were deserted. It was perfect for poor people like Dustless to eat. The money I stole from those hoodlums and the money I swindled from Natsuki Minamiya is quite a lot. But if I keep wasting it, I'll end up sleeping on the streets sooner or later. Let's eat first and get through each day one by one. Dustless walked into a restaurant and casually found a place to sit down. He brought over all the dishes and soon after, he ignored the fighting outside and ate while silently observing. Anyway, it had nothing to do with him. That guy. Natsuki naturally realized that Dustless was trying to take advantage of the situation. She was speechless as she muttered to herself. How many years has he been starving for him to be so good at picking a free meal? No one even reported him. Because of the relationship between these two demons, the people in the store all ran away. Who would care about Dustless? Zhuoti, tear her apart. The golden-haired demon cultivator roared in fury. He was pointing at the black-haired young woman with the silver spear. This woman was none other than Wuxia. Ayo ayo. The dark red horse raised its head and roared towards the sky. It leaped up with its four powerful limbs and widely opened its mouth, showing a 180-degree angle. It's useless. As a sword magus from the Lion King organization, how can I lose to low-level beings like you? Wuxia's eyes shone with a cold light while she threw out the silver spear without hesitation. Boom, boom, boom. Thunderous booms spread out, causing waves that even made the streets squeak. Obviously, the snow-cloud wolf had taken over the mountain wind. The curly beast, named Zhuoti, let out a few screams, which sounded extremely human-like. Right after that, a great power burst out from Wuxia's seemingly weak body. Wuxia slightly thrust her sword forward, and this majestic curly beast was sent flying away with brute force. Boom, boom, boom. Its enormous body heavily smashed into the surrounding streets, creating a huge pit. Damn it! We kicked an iron board this time. This little girl is so cruel. The two demons who had landed on the ground regretted their actions. They looked at Wuxia, who had a cold face, while trembling in fear. They felt like they had fallen into an ice cave. You too will pay for your stupidity. Wuxia's face turned cold while the sharp light of the snow wolf pierced towards the two demons. Phew! 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 As the snow wolf was about to pierce through the two demons' bodies, a dark silhouette darted over at an extremely fast speed. That dark silhouette punched towards the snow wolf with his rock-like fists. Boom! 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 The wolf let out a muffled noise, which made Wuxia's facial expression change even more. Her hands trembled for a few times. If she hadn't been well trained, she might have been injured by the wolf, even though she wasn't the target of the attack. Xiao Guqing's fist was so powerful that Wuxia almost lost her grip on the snow wolf spear. They know they're wrong, Xiao Guqing said blandly. Catch this idiot. The golden-haired young man who had summoned the curly beast said viciously. His eyes were filled with cunning. That young man nodded, then swiftly darted to Xiao Guqing's back. Within 5 seconds, he gripped Xiao Guqing's neck with his arm and took out a sharp dagger. Throw away the weapon in your hand, the lackey threatened. Xiao Guqing is such an idiot. Although these guys are landed demons, they're not good people. He was too careless. Nangong Natua, who had just arrived, curled her lips and curled her lips. She looked hopeless. Xiao Guqing was indeed not suitable to be a true ancestor. Although this guy is a true ancestor, he's still a layman. Xiao Guqing was just an ordinary student not long ago. He doesn't have the right identity to be a true ancestor yet. Dustless, who had been eating and drinking, also blushed because of Xiao Guqing's behavior. Although this was caused by his carelessness, Xiao Guqing didn't even have the heart to be vigilant at all. He didn't understand that people's hearts were unpredictable. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.